We call the Budget Committee to order. Councilman Ernie Newman, co-chair of the committee, worked in the jail. Y'all gotta take that outside.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were starting.
I
Not
said,
to be rude.
as I was saying, we're gonna start this meeting. I'm Councilman Ernie Newton, co-chair. We will have the committee members announce themselves first. Other fellow colleagues, our colleagues will introduce themselves, and we'll take it down that path.
Scott Burns, co-chair, budget appropriations.
Amy Marie Vizzo, chair, Councilman 134th, Budget Appropriations Committee member.
Mary McBride Lee, 135th, committee member.
134th District, and I'm not a committee member.
Councilman Hodges, representing the 136th District, Budget Committee member.
Councilwoman Martinez, co-chair, 139th District. No, not committee member.
Maria Valle, 137th.
Dasha Spell, 132nd. Jeanette Aaron, committee member.
Richard Ortiz, 135th, committee member. Fred Castillo, Councilman 136.
Councilman Cruz, 131st District, not a committee.
Right over here.
My name is Frank Rivera, I'm the acting deputy director for emergency communications.
Scott Appleby, Director of Emergency Management, Homeland Security.
Ashley Aguilera, Legislative Services.
Linda Lubin, social worker.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Right
Pastor
here?
Barry Jackson, Big Group Productions.
Selena Jackson, Big View Productions.
Okay,
Kathleen Brickett, OPM.
okay, all right. Oh,
I think Frank,
I thought he was too, but they're outside. Okay, ground rules. These are the ground rules for tonight. We want to be respectful. Anybody that wishes to talk, we will write your name down. We will stick to the budget. Budget deals with money, not how many police they have in your district. We're gonna talk about the budget. And that's what we're talking about today. If anyone I feel is out of order, I'm calling you out of order. It shouldn't be confrontation. I know it's gonna be hot and heavy, but that's just the way it is. Our job is to look at the police department, to look at the other departments that we need, emergency management, and we will take it from there. We'll go through the chair. And that's how we'll run it. Now, I know it's food here. You all are welcome. We don't have let me see, what pork up there, Fred, so you in good shape, baby. All right, let me see. All right, everybody that's got cell phones, please put them on vibrate.
do they have any extras? Can I
Okay,
have a copy?
and then we'll be good. I'm looking for, we're gonna bring Scott on up from, yes, we're gonna do it first. We've got to exhibit some stuff first. I hope everybody has a copy of emergency management's presentation. Did you,
Absolutely. I will exhibit, it says City Council Budget Review, FY 25-26 is Emergency Management Operations as 04302025-1.
Second?
all in favor? Ayes have it. Okay, and what we're gonna, I want y'all to listen to me. We're gonna let him go through his presentation. And then if you got some questions you'd like to ask, then we'll take those questions.
Chair, thank you, sir. So if everybody could look, I mean, we've really, our budget's very easy this year. We only really have two items, but if we want to go, step by step, let's The mission statement obviously is the most important thing that we follow all the time. You know, that is to ensure that we're saving lives and protecting property here in the city. Our department values is obviously important to who we serve. Frank, if you want to go next slide, people look up there. We have try to have excellence in professionalism and how we handle ourselves in our duties within the emergency management, Homeland Security, as well as the Emergency Communications Center. We try to do a lot of problem solving. I know I've talked to many of you at this table, try to figure out how to work together as a team, and more importantly, how do we help our community partners, and how do we help our community in general. So that's always been our mission. If at any time you feel that any of our staff at any time are going against that grain, we want to hear from you guys right away. And we've actually encouraged you to call us right away when that happens. Organizational chart, as you see up here, currently we have the director. We report to the deputy CEO, Mr. Reyes. We have the director's position. We have an acting deputy director position, which we're right now in the process of getting that position filled. That is, we've already received applications, and currently we're going through the process of starting the test. We do after that have our ECC supervisors. Right now, as Francisco Rivera Jr. being our acting deputy director, we do have one vacancy, but again, that's all going to be contingent upon how that gets filled at this time. And he's in the acting role. We do have our telecommunication operators that come after the supervisors. We are budgeted for 44. Right now, we are currently short 9. We do have, in civil service right now, we have a list of individuals who have passed. It's now a matter of getting them into the center and getting them trained once they go through the last steps of the process. We do have a clerical assistant that's already budgeted for. We have a budgeted for 2 special project coordinators. One of them is our PIO for the emergency management, fire, and police, and the other one has taken on duties that we currently are in need of. And one of those duties, actually 2 of those duties, is one for our chemical facilities within the city, making sure that we really have the proper documentation. And the second duty, which ties into you guys in the neighborhood revitalization, is we created neighborhood plans. So every one of your districts has a neighborhood plan in draft format right now, which we're going to kick off to each of you. What that plan details, it details what your community should be preparing themselves for, and then where they could go for assistance if something were to happen. We want your buy-in with that, because that is your neighborhoods, those are your districts. So that's going to be coming shortly, probably within the month. We have our new guy on board, and hopefully that gets played out. And then we have we do have a part-time payroll clerk that we have on the budget as well. And I think that goes for the organizational. If there's any questions for the organizational chart, I'd be more than happy to answer it. Our goals this year. We're trying again to implement our restructuring strategy. That's been kind of wavering a bit. You know, we have a lot of dialogue going on, and that is the handling of the emergency medical call volume. So when you call 911 currently right now, we answer that call, but we transfer that medical call to AMR. So by doing that, we don't get our full subsidy from the state because they don't see us as a full-time center. So we're working with administration, working with our legal department to try to figure out how we can minimize any risk that may be associated with taking on that emergency medical, I guess it would be the call triage. And, you know, answering questions, you know, and giving them instructions to do. Our next goal is, obviously, these are ones that we've always done and we're going to continually do. Conducting citywide training, conducting citywide outreach, ensuring that all of our community members, your family members, your friends, that they're prepared for any hazard that can impact us, and more importantly, that they know where to go, who to call and what to do. That's the biggest part of outreach. Now that outreach, which we'll get later on in the budget hearing, we can show you how many times we do that a year, and we'll get to that. We're going to implement strategies which we currently do to start to leverage a lot of the technology that's out there, whether it be apps, which we're trying to go after, whether it be ways that the community or members, because currently right now they can text to 911, your constituents. And we do get a lot of folks that text to 911 rather than calling us. So we want to enhance those technology services that we have out there. Next short-term goal is obviously to increase the coverage when we disseminate public information. And that means to disseminate public information to anybody, any culture, anybody that speaks any type of language, to make sure everybody knows what's out there, and we're reaching all the languages that we currently have here. Shauna White, who is our PIO for the city, is doing a tremendous job right now. She's been tasked to figure out ways to work with you and work with others to kind of make sure that we're getting the message to the right people. From my standpoint, and I think I've said this to you guys plenty of times during the budget meeting, we know there's a lot of folks that may not trust government. I need to find out who they trust so they can get the message to them, and they can get the message out to people. You're not hurting my feelings at all. I just want to make sure they're safe. So that's kind of that short-term goals. Our medium-term goals, again, we have this in there again, handling those 911 calls, because that's going to be a big boost to us financially. We're going to continue to implement the strategies to allow us to become more resilient. So we understand that one of the big grants that we're supportive of, FEMA has reduced, which is the BRIC. So now we got to find out different ways or other ways to kind of try to supplement that. And that's what the whole thing about resiliency, and hopefully we could do that. Our next plan strategy for medium is looking for more grant funding to enhance ourselves before, during, and after emergencies with communications. And we're talking about communications with, we're talking about radio, we're talking about social media, we're talking about external communications, billboards, the like. And how do we do that from our emergency operations center to everything else goes along with it. And the number one important thing is assessing our threats. How do we make sure that everybody in our community knows what threats and hazards can impact us? I think that's the most important. That goes hand in hand with ensuring that we're reaching the socially vulnerable and making sure that they understand the hazards and the threats that can be imposed on the city of Bridgeport. Another one is obviously to maintain our collaboration with police, fire, EMS, hospitals, all the other external agencies from a public information standpoint. We have medium goals of interfacing with them. So our 911 center actually has an interface with AMR, has an interface with the hospitals. Those are some of the technology and some of the other stuff that we're trying to do right now. And then long term, obviously we're still trying to get ourselves restructured in EOC. As many of you have come and see the EOC, possibly become a regional training environment for our 911 center and emergency operations. We're the largest city in the state. We have activated for many incidents. We have held many hazard type trainings. So why not try to leverage that to maybe introduce some revenue for the future? And that's kind of our long-term goal. So those are our goals as of 2025, 2026. There's a couple of them that have stayed the same because we feel it's important each year to carry it on. But some of them are new to this process. Frank, if you want to go to the next slide. So 2023, 2024. Been very successful, except for our restructuring to the EMD. As I just said, that training facility talk, but we're still in talks with our regional folks and state folks and the federal folks to see how we can have that occur. And then the other strategy was the different ways of increasing revenue. Now, talking to a lot of colleagues across the nation, a lot of revenue that they implement or have in their jurisdictions have to do with businesses that are required to have emergency plans, a chemical facility, for instance. So when we have a Trodebi type incident that we had a few years ago, that we understand that they have a plan, which they do from a tier 2 perspective, but that they're actually doing the other stuff. So there may be a revenue dollar amount associated with getting their plans, reviewing their plans, and ensuring that they're doing the right stuff. Second component to that revenue that we talked about was how do we leverage, or is there a dollar amount for those complexes that house seniors living independently, and ensuring that they have a generator. During most of our major storms, as we all know, once we lost power, a lot of individuals in those complexes weren't able to handle that stuff. So is there ways to pass that if they're not taking these steps, is there any type of financial penalty? And again, we all have to talk collectively about that, but that is one of the goals that we have on the plate right now. And it's something I think we hear in other jurisdictions and hearing how they handle this revenue for emergency management or revenue to ensure that they're protected from hazards and becoming more resiliency. That may be something we talk about as a group here. I don't have the answers, and that's why we need collectively to come up with the answers. Next slide. So here's our service indicators. We're very busy building, as you all know. 911, we receive approximately a little bit over 110,000 911 calls a year. We receive about 250,000 non-emergency calls a year, which kind of gives us around that 300 range or so of receiving all types of calls in the center. Picture this. We average about 2,300 911 calls a week. That are priorities that we have to have a response from police and fire, and that's also being transferred over to AMR. So fire roughly has about close to 20,000 calls annually. Ambulance, AMR, about 30,000 calls, and the rest are PD calls. We do a lot of training. There's groups that ask us to come out and do, like just today. We had one of our schools, we went in there and did an active threat swatting type training for that school and those teachers. We're very busy throughout the years. We also have to ensure that all of our schools have emergency plans in place and that they're doing their drills. And we have to make sure that each of those schools under state law are doing a minimum of 10 drills annually. I know I see a lot of nodded heads because there's a lot of you that work in the school system or have family members who work in the school system, and know that's one of our most important things is to ensure that the students and staff, especially our young ones, that they're protected. So we monitor those drills and we ensure that they're following their procedures. And we are one of, if not the only district that does unannounced drills. So we'll actually go to their school unannounced, have them, follow through in the procedure, whatever procedure we ask them of, and see what happens from there. And then we grade. It's not about grading the people; it's about ensuring that they know and are knowledgeable of the plan. Finally, we have a lot. We have been successful over the years with grants. We manage this year alone. We manage about $480,000 worth of grants. That's predominantly our port security grant, our emergency management performance grant, and then our subsidy that comes back from the state for our 911 system. In the previous years, we had over $1 million, but obviously, as we all know, a lot of cuts in the grants, a lot of grants that haven't been successfully provided back to us. And what the word is on the street, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about grants, is the fact that we could probably start seeing possibly some reduction, but I don't think the grants that we're dealing with right now are going to be impacted as much as others. And that's kind of what we're gathering right now. Frank? Operational budget. At this point in time, we're about 83.5% of our budget has been used to date. Our overtime is over about 431,000, and that's because we have 9 vacancies. And we're required, based on that call volume, to ensure that we have people that are in those seats to answer those calls. That's all that is. That's not any type of let's just get overtime to get overtime. It is contractual overtime. If people are out sick, if they're on vacation, they take a personal day, we have to fill that spot. But majority of the time, it's due to, right now, it's due to the vacancies. And then the only two proposed increases that we have in our budget is telephone and television. They have gone up. All right. Other than that, we're trying to keep hold, working with Frank from OPM, ensuring that we still maintain our budget and working in the confines of our budget. And we have been in talks, also to try to figure out ways, even when we do get to 9, how to minimize that overtime a little bit more. Yes, sir. I know we talked about grant revenue. So our port security grants, we were successful in 2023 and 2024. 2023 is up this year. 2024 will be up in, 2023, yeah, will be up in 2026, 2024, and 2027. Now, the 2023 is we received money to handle the vessels for both police and the fire department. The fire department vessel and the police department vessel. Things that they couldn't afford in their budget, we got through the grant to enhance some of the outdated equipment. In 2024 grant, we were successful and able to get the surveillance systems for the new high-speed ferry boat that's going to be coming. So again, we were successful in those 2 grants. We'll continually go for more grants as we go along. But at this point in time, as we all know, we don't know what really is going to be provided outward and how much is going to be provided to us. The Emergency Management Performance Grant is a pass-through from FEMA to the state. That pays for salaries. We have to meet objectives and goals from the state. Once we meet those goals, which we have met for 30 years, they get us money back. Roughly works out to about 50% of my salary, or close to it. And for the acting deputy director or the deputy director position, that'll work into about maybe close to 25 to 30% of that salary. So we're trying to save taxpayer money by going after those grants. And then lastly, the 911 subsidy. Every one of you who has a phone, everyone who has phone line, you get charged a surcharge. That surcharge gets brought to the state. The state then has a formula. Within that formula, it tells you what money comes back to you based on the services you provide. As I said to you, we provide currently 2 services. Although we answer 3, we only provide 2. We do not do any triaging of medical calls. That's provided to the to AMR. If we do that function, which everybody's trained to do, you can see an incredible increase from what we get from the state to what they want to give us. So we have a lot of discussion that we have with our city attorney's office and our CEO's office and OPM to ensure that that's the goal, that we go for reach to that goal. But there's some risk that we have to ensure that we minimize. What if there's liability if someone says it wrong? So there's a lot that goes along with that we have to be comfortable with, that we're going to be able to pull the trigger. Frank? That's our EOC personnel that's in your in the budget form right now. Again, we have combined the training position this year to create the acting deputy or the deputy director position. So that position are all going to be encompassed because those roles are the same in a sense, and there's added duties that if I'm not available, that deputy director has to be able to take care of. In addition to that, you also have the 2 special project coordinators positions. So again, we maneuvered some of the positions that we had training. We had a special project person in the past. We're now added, remember we added the PIO to our budget last year. So we have some of that saving money that we have with the current PIO and some of it going to the special projects coordinator. I know Frank could talk a little bit more about the salaries and how that maneuvered, because it really comes from really their department. Frank, next slide. As I said earlier, we have 44 budgeted TCOs. Currently, right now, we are short 9, but Civil Service has a list that we hope to bring 9 in within the next couple months. According to them, is that they went through the process and they're ready to go. We still, this is part of that restructuring, right? if we do go to that EMD triaging of the call, we certainly need a quality assurance person. We have to make sure that they are asking the right questions all the time. So that is a much needed position for us. We're making do right now. I know budget's tight, and I'm gonna be honest with you, we're making do. But there's only so much our staff can continually do. We really need one person to focus in on that. Frank? And here's some of our successes. We were ensuring our success was to make sure that the schools had 100% of their drills and their plans in place. And that's a tough task if you really think about it. They have to do 10 drills, a minimum of 10 drills a year. They have to provide us our emergency plan by November, and they have to have all their drills done by the end of the year. So staying on top of it with the current, climate that we have in our schools has been a really good, it's been a challenging task this year. I'm not going to lie to you, but so far we're able to achieve that and make sure that they're on point. We are the only municipality, Hartford, New Haven, Danbury, Bridgeport, that are in the over 90% threshold for the state answering 911 calls. So if you look at Hartford, you look at Stanford, you look at Bridgeport, we are the one that's always in the top as the largest municipality answering 911 calls, 10 seconds or less, 90% of our operational time. And I'll give you an example. You drive down Boston Avenue and you get a motor vehicle accident. How many people drive down Boston Avenue? A lot. How many calls do you think we get just from that one motor vehicle accident?
Maybe one.
Maybe. I like it.
100.
We probably get about 30 to 40 calls from residents passing by. I don't know if you know about that. So think about the amount of calls that come in just from one small incident. And now you think about the larger incidents with storms and everything else. The last incident that we had when the 911 in some towns were down, not in our town, but they put the message out to everybody, we got immediately 800 calls within 1 hour. So just think about us maintaining that number of being over 90%. Remarkable effort from our personnel, remarkable effort. We implemented technology. We have Prepared Live is a name of it. So if a resident calls and they accept our link, we can actually see from their phone what's actually happening at the incident. Person's blocking my driveway. Ma'am, sir, can we send you a link? Let's see what's going on there. Yep, okay. Ma'am, sir, can you move around to see the license plate? Yes, sir, ma'am. We're going to try to make contact with that individual to move that car. Or better yet, you have a fire. Sir, ma'am, please get out of your house safely. We're going to send you a link. Can you get us a link and show us what's on fire? Brilliant technology. Once that call ends, we have no access. We don't have access to the phone beyond what they're showing us. But that's a new technology. Rapid SOS is another technology we have, which means this. If you're using your cell phone and you call 911, we can pinpoint where you are within 3 feet. So imagine if you're lost and you say, look, I don't know where I am, I'm lost, and you're calling us from your phone. We could then, instead of hitting the towers and try to pinpoint you in a mile radius, we now could come around 3 feet. So there's a lot of technology we have. We're working with police and fire to enhance that. What calls can we use? How do we want this to be able to be responsive to those calls? So it's very successful that we have that. And then obviously, we're looking at, from our perspective, is a future launch of a police, fire, EOC, and health department preparedness app. That a resident could go on there, no matter where they are, click on whatever they're looking for. Police information, fire information, emergency management information, health information. So we're at the final stages. Hopefully we can push over this year. Within a couple months we have that in place for our constituents. And then the neighborhood plans I talked to you about. We have plans that every single one of you will get copies of in draft format, and then build upon that with your members and your community members to do that. I think that's going to be a good avenue for residents when they're calling you and they're calling us, saying, where do I go if I have to evacuate? What should I do if something happens? And or what hazard should I prepare for? They say no. That. Frank? Here's a little bit more successes. Obviously, the 93, 96% we talked about. We've been very successful in helping you, with you helping us, doing turkey drives, toy drives, giving back to the community. We are working with, one of the cool things this year, we're working with Bullard Havens to try to work with them to funnel in a school to work type plan strategy, because their students are learning about 911, they're learning how to dispatch, they're learning that. So what better ways to try to segue them, that once they turn 18, that could be our future leaders of this department, right? And work within Bridgeport. We're already, as you guys know, we're already a storm-ready community. We keep getting that title to us each year by the National Weather Service about, me and my jokes to come out to you guys with the Yankees. Sorry, Councilman Cruz. But the whole thing of keeping people informed and keeping it in a good way where people are not fearful. And that's the reason we do that. So we're informative, we calm everybody down, and we do that. So the National Weather Service has seen those. It's not the only reason why we're storm ready. It's because we have emergency operations plan in place. We train, we exercise, and we do such a good job by working with you guys in getting the information out to the public. That is my spiel today. And I'm looking forward to any questions, concerns you may have regarding the budget.
Great job.
Scott, thank you. And I listened to your presentation. I'm more concerned because you all can see all over the city, right? Shot spotters go off, can you?
Shot spotter we do.
So you don't have cameras where you can actually see people?
Fusion Center does.
The Fusion Center.
Yeah,
So I
Fusion
got
Center.
that. Okay, so I need to talk to you about the Fusion Center. I will say this, that we were somewhere and we were talking about our center and how high tech it is and that we're like a state of the art. And there were a lot of people that gave Bridgeport high credits on what it is you all do. I know it's not easy, but there are a lot of hours going and people work. So I can see where, you need those people to give Bridgeport the best service. Okay.
Reverend Lee's got a question.
Reverend Lee? Thank you very much. Scott, just write it down, okay?
First of all, I would like to say that I think you all doing a great job. And one of the things that impressed me a lot was one morning I was coming to school, and before the kids went inside, there was a fire drill. And I think that was very important because usually when we had a fire drill, the kids are already inside and we lead them out. But when you change it up like that, then they won't be shocked if it was a real fire. Okay, that's one thing that I want to say. The question I want to ask is, I know that usually when we dial 911, we are in trouble. Somebody in trouble. And so on the presentation here, we have non-911 calls that you receive. What is considered a considered a non-911 call?
So to the chair. So if you're calling up, you call the 576-7671 non-emergency number. Hey, my toter I think got stolen, or I'm missing my toter. I notice I'm driving on the road and there's a pothole. There's noise. My neighbor has noise next door.
Okay.
It could be anything that they feel is not an immediate danger to life and health. So everything. So we're working with our CAO's office to try to figure out ways that we could maybe triage that call so our 911 operators aren't consumed with a non-emergency call while a 911 call is coming in. So we're thinking of ways. Right now, our procedure is put that person on hold, you have a 911. That's more important.
Okay.
But as you know, there's not everybody that likes to be put on hold, and that's fair enough. But we got to figure out ways to kind of do both. But non-emergency calls would be anything. There may be an animal on the road. Can you come out and take care of it? That type of stuff.
Okay. So we trying to figure out a way that we won't have to call 911 is when animals on the road, right?
There's people that use a non-emergency call, and they actually have an emergency.
Okay.
So I think what we need to do when we talk about our community outreach, I think our job is to really go out and get the education out there of when to use 911, when not to use it. Most of our, we go to schools a lot and we do that, right? We have a little play phone we can use the stuff too. So I think we just need a better job in having everybody understand. And the fact of the matter is, don't be afraid to call 911. Like, and I know, believe me, I heard from you guys a few of times where a constituent would call 911 and like our staff would say, hey, you have to call this number. And they would hang up and call the number and they get the same person. We get frustrated with that as well. Just answer the call, provide the service, and then educate them. Hey, next time you can call this number. So that app, hopefully that app will help us gear people to the right way of calling, or we'll have to do a better job in educating folks.
Okay, my second question, Mr. Chair, is the pub safety TCO. I see we have 8 vacancies. 9 now, okay. Okay, so we have 9 vacancies there, and I looked on the paper here to see exactly what that was and what it consists of. And I think that's the same one that's on staff position vacancy. On page, hold on, I don't have page. Anyway.
It is. So we're budgeted for 44 positions, and we're short 9 this year.
Oh, okay.
So we're not trying to put more in. We're just short the 9 that we're already budgeted for.
Okay.
So we're budgeted for the 44. We have our 35 that are currently in place. But civil service has that list that we already went through the exam, already went through the interview process, and they have a list of us ready to go. Frank, when did they say they want to get the people in? About June time, to hopefully have it in. So hopefully that'll help lower the overtime.
Yeah, because
we were like that a couple years ago.
I think that your office is very not just important to the school, but especially important to the schools because we never know what's going to happen there, and we want to make sure that whatever you need, that's going to keep the staff and the kids and the community too safe. Because we had an incident, which I'm not going to name, that it was emergency, but at the time we didn't even realize it was an emergency because of your training that you bring into the school. We was able to slide through it with the kids, getting a friend and the teacher too. so that's why I think that it's important that whatever is needed to help your department to continue to do a better job is cool to me.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna do 2, and then we got Dasha and Vaya. Oh, okay, sorry. So thank you for being here, Scott. 1, the rate of reimbursement on the calls, has that changed at all over time? Should we expect anything more? Is that something maybe state legislature should?
So the state passed. You put me on the spot. I think, I'll find exactly the date. I want to say either 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They increased that funding through the state public 911 commission. That was an increase. So currently, right now, the formula they have based on the calls, right? Say it's $1 or 25 cents is your call. They have that formula, amount of calls coming in, your population, how many services you provide. In our case, like I said, it's only 2, so that variable is always down to like a 0 or a 1, and then it goes into. There's a couple added other variables that go along with it. They give us like $48,000 every year, annually. If we then increase to the EMS side of it and start doing the EMS triage, that increases to $860,000. There's risk. That's why we have to make sure that we're set to get to that. And again, that only goes up if the state decides they want to increase the surcharge on the 911.
Just the kind of a status update, this is my second question. You said you've got a queue of incoming TCOs. Is your list active? Is that good? I mean, because you always have vacancies. I mean, that's a perennial challenge, right?
Average about 5 to 7.
So are you,
So that list is a pretty big list. Now, according to civil service, usually those lists are good for 2 years. So what we have done with fire and police, right, is try to keep the campaigns going.
Yeah.
Try to put a test out, because we know we're always gonna be into that avenue. Or, as we're working with CEO's office, or at least discussing part of that restructuring, is, well, do we figure out different ways then? Because we know if we have all these non-emergency calls coming in, maybe we reroute them, and then that hopefully lowers, like we have the folks concentrate just on the emergency calls, and then maybe that can lower our staffing levels. That basically, instead of being vacant, I wanna say like 9 a week, maybe we're down to like 5. So there's ways that we're looking at it in that realm of, we know people retire, we know people resign, they wanna become a firefighter, they wanna be a police officer, they wanna work EMS. That's what, usually when the people resign, they wanna retire, or they wanna go into something else. And they're using us as a springboard, that's which is fine. But we then have to work out ways to try to minimize that impact, by not impacting the
so
overtime.
just to follow, so when is your list expire? Do you know?
Well, it just started.
Oh, you just.
So, yeah, we
you
just got a new
oh,
list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just went through
So
the
you
whole
got about 2 years
process
to go.
last month.
Okay.
So we're trying to get them in June,
Okay.
so you figure 2 years from now.
Yeah, okay, good.
And that's all contingent upon if everybody follows that, the process,
Yeah.
because there's other backgrounds and all that other
Right.
stuff as well too.
So Jared, it's up to you, you got community members Hodges
Do
and
the committee
Aaron,
members and then.
and
we'll do
then
the
Spell
council.
and Bite.
Yeah, right. Committee members,
So Hodges and then
okay. Fred?
Thank you. I just have a question for you on here. I'm looking at, on your page where it says personnel summary, and public safety communication trainer, right, is being reclassed to the deputy director of safety communication.
Correct.
And me being on the budget committee and trying to be a little fiscal responsible this year, I'm just trying to figure out why is there like a almost $40,000 difference when a person was on the public safety, and then he's gonna be the deputy director, he's gonna get like a $40,000 raise.
Frank, I don't know if you want to answer. I think when we adopted the department, that deputy director position was one of those that were listed in the BCSA non-classified, classified list, and there was a number associated with that position already approved, and that's what we're going by.
Reyes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and through the chair, just to elaborate further, so it was always a deputy position, right, as Scott mentioned. So it's a tested position, so it's a competitive position. So Frankie, while he is in the current acting role, right, God willing, he could be our candidate, but we have a pool of candidates from all over the U.S. that apply for this position. They have to be tested, if they rank, then it can be interviewed, and then that's how that position. But again, that line item was always there, right? Scott is managing, 2 departments in one, where Scott can elaborate further, and I can shed some light, right, because he has the 911 component of it, but he also has the emergency management component that's merged into it.
And I know I make it look easy, I know.
Go right ahead. Who's next?
Oh, second? Aaron.
Okay. I'm glad Fred brought that up. I have another question, but I'm gonna piggyback on that. I don't want anybody in any of the departments to think we're attacking on those quote-unquote raises or those increases, because we're not, but we're questioning that. And it's been brought to this table every time we've met, because logistically, we understand the jobs are being done. We appreciate that, but with the fiscal crisis that we're occurring and will be going through, it's hard to justify $10, $15, $20, $30,000 raises unless the job is changed. So I really don't want anybody to feel insulted when we start saying things, because I know we hurt feelings, and honestly, at this point, it's not an issue. My question for you, other than that, is Prepare Live and Rapid SOS, that's active now, and did that come at a cost to us?
Nope, actually, well, Prepare Live, both of them are free, but Prepare Live, we do pay a cost to transfer that information to fire, police, to MPTs. and I think it's roughly this year about 10 or 12,000.
That's all I got, thank you.
Councilman Spell and then Valle.
So my question to you is that looking at Bridgeport being on top compared to our counterparts in Bridgeport County, has it ever been brought to you from one of the other cities, to like help train their dispatchers or operators?
Absolutely.
And so, with that in mind, I know you're gonna charge them a pretty dime, right? Here in Fairfield County.
Yes. So, through the chair, the state of Connecticut, because really this evolved 2018. And what we did was, we had a short of 13 people. We were the worst, we were one of the worst 911 centers in the state. And I think we all wear that now as a badge of honor now, that where we went from and where we are now, it's about accountability. And what we did was, we just looked at the stats, looked at who was doing what, and held people to the standard that this is your job. You have to answer the phone 10 seconds or less, 90% of the operational time. We understand when there's big events going on, and we start to pull data and show data. So we'd actually go up to an individual and say, look, today, you did 40 calls, but today I only did 3. Why? And you could have me on 3 important calls. So we kind of use that data to our advantage, and the state of Connecticut DSAT actually came to us and said, how did you do it? So now what we're proud of is that the 911 system, when they do the reports, predominantly all of our reports that we created to Excel. And it's in the system that any other jurisdiction now could use that and say, hey, we're not meeting it today, why? Why weren't we doing this? Why weren't, our percentage could be 50% today, why? Maybe there was a big emergency, maybe there's honestly a justifiable answer, but in most instances, again, we're keeping people to their task. And then on top of it, the state is doing a large center. That's why, hopefully, long term, if we could create our own center and do it down here, then that's where the revenue comes in.
Like that.
So we'll go Valle, and then Councilwoman Lee, myself, Councilwoman Lyons.
I heard you mention link. Now, I don't know what link is. If my idea of a link, I know what it is, but in this terminology, I do not know. So you mentioned link and you mentioned other, I guess, services. Are you need money for that program, and is it somewhere here in the budget? No.
No, because we're already budgeted for it. It comes out of our operational expense. So here's how that works, through the chair. I'll send you a link to I'll send you a text message. And in a text message, you may have a link, like a underline, looks like kind of like an email.
Okay.
You click on that, it'll go back to the 911 center. And the 911 center will accept, and then you show us your phone of what you're doing at the scene. We don't see anything else in the phone, except for that camera. Once you turn around and we say, look, we're done, we disconnect, that you can hit that link so many times, you're not coming to us.
So that service is already budgeted and it's in progress and people are using it?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
How come I'm not?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we did a lot of community relations out there. I think we obviously, if we needed to do more then.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of news reports on it. We actually,
Did you know about link?
I don't know the exact number of how many times people use it, but we've been using it for fires, blocked driveways, hazards on the road. There's a lot more we could use it for. We're just gradually going at baby steps. Because if you think about it, it could be used a lot for
Because
the higher
when you
incidents.
just started this.
We had in a demo for about a year and a half, 2 years, and we just last year we launched it. We had a whole press conference on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know about it.
So we can't go to press conference.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I said it.
But yeah, I'll get you the information.
Yeah, that, are we talking about the SOS?
Oh, Rapid SOS, yeah.
That's what, that's what we were just,
That was prepared with the link, but Rapid
Okay,
SOS
that's-
from your cell phone, yeah.
oh, because I was gonna ask the question about the SOS.
Yes.
And, do we have that now? Oh,
We have Rapid, that's
it's
an,
the
and
same thing that she was,
No, different.
Okay.
yeah, the Rapid SOS is pretty much all the dispatch centers in the nation have this. That's if you're calling from your cell phone. You know, Apple, Android, you could see within 3 feet. We could, if you're lost, we could pinpoint you within 3 feet, if you're calling from your cell.
Yeah, 'cause I really need that. I don't have.
I think everybody has it on their phone now.
Really?
Yeah.
That
It's
just
not,
okay.
it's behind the scenes, but you have it on your phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody gonna tell me how to use that, 'cause I got lost one night coming from the golf course. Instead of going, and I don't go on the highway. Instead of going right, I went left and went right into the highway, and it petrified me. I would have used that SOS, 'cause I thought to call the police department to come and get me. You know, I didn't know how to get out of there, you know?
If
So
you
I
actually
think, I think that that's good. Before you leave tonight, I want you to put it on my phone.
Well, it's already on your phone. So if you call police and you use your cell phone, that dispatch center that picks up, if you're next to Trumbull or next to us, we could pinpoint you.
Oh, that is wonderful. I tell everybody, when you get over 55, everything changed. So you know, I'm over 55.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
you're welcome.
Where's the
I got a lot to look forward to.
All right, Scott, I think I've asked this in the past, but I'll ask again, because it's still evolving, but, you know, we have a social worker component, calls come into you. How are we, in terms of if there's training that you've had to spend money on or time, so that our police and our social workers are able to work together and go out in the field or whatever?
We really didn't have to. I mean, it's part of the emergency medical, and they're part of their training anyway, of how to triage a call and then who to go. Now, we don't necessarily, and we work closely with Mr. Reyes and social service group of getting Linda and right and everybody out. But really, it's we'll get as much information as possible and get it to them as quickly as we can, and then dispatch them and let them handle it. We've had our TCOs talk people out of suicides, right? Because that's the training they go into. Try to keep people calm, get the medics rolling, and they work as a team. So we already had that training as part of it, as part of our certification.
Okay.
It was really trying to figure out like what's the protocol for police when they want that CIT team and all those teams to go at what type of calls. That's all really was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that in a nutshell was really what we had to do. That's why we felt it was better not to have that budget in our budget, but transferred over to social services to really figure out those protocols and then to provide the resources on it.
Okay. Do you track the number of that type of call?
We track the number, we could track the number of how many times we dispatch them.
Yeah.
We also have, we could break down of any person who has unresponsive, drug overdose, anything, we have all those breakdowns for you, yes.
Okay, all right, might want to follow up with that. My last point, the grant you have for the high-speed ferry, I'm of the firm opinion that is a boondoggle of a program. Its placement is crazy. It's gonna require massive subsidies if ever it, I was gonna say get off the ground, but that would be a bad pun. Yeah, I think that's just been a really misguided effort, time and place and all that, and we even lost ARPA money to that. So how much does that occupy your time, money, whatever?
So, I mean, this is actually an easy grant. It's $50,000 and it's really just to place cameras, you know, because you're not doing much. So,
Okay.
our thought is, and what we could, just talking to you right now,
Yep.
if something were to happen, because it's at their ferry terminal, if that would never go through, it's still added cameras going down towards the train track then,
Okay.
that we just added on.
Ancillary benefit anyhow.
Yeah, there is a way we can benefit from that.
I'm good. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Reverend Lynn, then we're gonna ask Frank if he has, somebody else raise their hand. Michelle, I said,
Michelle.
yeah, Michelle. Go right ahead.
Oh, me? Okay. I have two questions. I know in the past that there was some, challenges with 911 and not having enough of people to answer the phone, the calls and stress. How is that in your system now working out?
So, the staff is still stressed, there's no doubt, right? So what we've done is last year, we designed a decompress room for those critical calls that they could go into after a critical call, decompress, kind of get their emotions and come back. But secondly, this year, we now create a peer support team. So we would have our folks being able to talk to their colleagues. And they went through training for that, which we already had in our budget to do that. The calls, as far as the amount of calls coming in and getting burnt out and all that stuff, again, we're short 9 now, but I think those programs in place have minimized stress. People are gonna interpret stress differently, they'll have their own personal stress coming into work. We just try to make sure that the work stress can be minimized. Because you're always gonna have your personal stress no matter what. But we've done a good job past 2 years. I mean, we've, that decompressor rooms work a lot. I see every single employee in that room at one point in time or another.
Okay. Now, the second question is when you go to the Board of Ed, because when we worked in the Board of Ed and they have the training, you know, for the children. Now, does the Board of Ed get charged for those, every time that, you know, you do the training for the Board of Ed?
We don't charge the Board of Ed.
Okay.
I mean, that's, because it's a state requirement
That's
that
what
they
I
have
was
to do
wondering.
10 year, they have to do.
Because that would be, then you'd have to charge us.
Yeah, they'll do a minimum of 10. We're there to evaluate. They're there to run, pretty much, we coordinate, we run it, but we're really more or less there to evaluate that they're actually following their plan. So they have to do a minimum of 10 a year, they have to have their emergency plan to us by November, and we review the plan, we review everything. That's what we do. I mean, we do it through emergency management with the help of fire and police. We do that no matter what.
Okay.
So no, we don't charge them for that.
I just was kind of curious. All right, thank you.
Where we capture it though, our VOC, they actually give us a portion to that bill to help keep documentation of those drills and of those plans through that program that we have.
Okay.
Okay, Frank, anything you wanna add to the budget that you want to share with the budget committee, or what was your, I said your recommendation, are they in line with Scott's asking, since they are budgeted for 9 people, and I understand they have enough people. They got 9 people,
vacancies.
9 vacancies,
Not
but
yet.
I heard there are enough people to fill those 9 vacancies, am I correct? And still have that list for 2 years.
According to civil service, there's a good portion of people right now.
So let me just hear from the budget person there, if he has any concerns with their budget, we can move to the police.
Yeah, so, the only thing that I'm kind of noting here, Scott had requested, or there was a request in this budget for advertising that I had reduced. Besides that, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, with any of these budgets is the personnel. I would say as far as the raises go, if there's any questions about, increases that you see in here, you can reach out to me and I can, I can clarify, because a lot of it really is played with the BCSA contract and how we budget that. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. Besides that, I think, Scott mentioned some revenue sources that we'll look into, and ultimately I just like to, with those proposals, just lay everything out and make sure when we, measure twice, cut once, right? So make sure we have all the details that we need, to make sure we get our intended results. So that's all I would have to add.
All right, we're going to, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Did you bring this food here?
I did not, but I can take credit for it if you like. I'm more than happy
I'm
to.
going to say give a raise.
Courtesy of Bridgeport.
You're welcome.
All right, bring
Keep up the good work, guys.
bring the police chief in, please.
I think we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, break.
Don't take breaks, what are you kidding? We wanna get out of here.
I thought I was ready.
Every night.
Don't take a break. I'm not on the committee, I can take a break.
I don't know.
He's gonna go rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not.
Everybody shoot on there, I gave you the best.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Okay?
Oh, you can log in right here. Log right here. Ashley, where's the mouse for this one? Right. Oh, they're not working.
Okay.
You forgot, you raised, you got raised up.
All right, when I, tomorrow when I go in there.
It's in there.
It's gone.
She got here late, she should come to time.
Well, I don't got a meeting, then, do I have to ask for permission to have an appointment? I didn't know that. Well, the other three council presidents are here, so y'all need me here. If you really wanna know. Maybe council president number 4, you're number 4 now?
I wouldn't want the position if they gave me $1 billion. So y'all can fight
Everybody wants Scott. Everybody wants
Sure.
I may be reaching out to you.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I forgot to tell everybody what I'm doing. Maybe I'll report it out.
Anything?
All right.
Shoot me an email. Let's go. I tell, you're on the roll. Anything you guys need, just let me know. We were supposed to do video scouts.
You know, there was not enough to go around, because perhaps scoop out.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Frank. Nice meeting you.
Loved your questions. I loved your questions. Thank you so much. You gave us some really good comments. I'm not saying it because I'm here, but we do work really hard. I was a dispatcher first.
You want?
I've been there for. I try our hardest to make sure that everybody gets a service.
We see the effect. We see it. I went to school systems.
It's not easy. Like a lot of people, obviously, have one individual. Unfortunately, his mother passed away a couple days ago. And I told him, I work on back in and two of them actually. One of them lost his father. And the last one, assistant chief. Cisco came out. Cisco came out.
Wow.
So, I'm Scott's deputy. I'm the acting deputy
Chief, we're ready for you, Chief. We're waiting to get plugged up.
Where's Ashley?
She thought she's okay.
Let me make a quick announcement before you all introduce yourselves.
Okay.
I've asked the city council to keep this towards the budget and to be cordial, because I know there's rumors running around that we haven't even voted on the budget, but we cut overtime. So I never heard that when we ain't even did the budget yet, that we done cut something. So I would ask everybody, keep the temperature low. We're here to talk about police department, manpower, and their budget. And there's a lot of questions that's going to be asked, so don't take it personal. We're just doing our job. And our job is, look at all the budgets. So we'll keep you informed, we got a deficit. All right? And it's our job to cover the deficit. That's what we're in charge of doing. So don't take anything personal. And I would hope everybody keeps it respectful Because if you don't, I'm gonna ask you to leave. Because we're not gonna have no chaos, none of that. You will go through the chair and be recognized. So, Chief, if you can introduce your staff so we'll know who's here.
Yeah, thanks, sir. So, start to my right, we have Assistant Chief Greg, if you guys don't know, everybody knows who he is. To my left, we have Deputy Chief James Baraha. To my left right here, we have Lieutenant Frank Jacobellis. And to my far left, we have our newest Assistant Chief, Frank Posi. So for those of you who don't know him, he's our newest Assistant Chief, so he's part of the team now.
All right, did they they got their presentation here, right? Did anybody do their presentation? Chief?
So we're just waiting to, maybe if I just have one.
I need you to bring, if you got copies, give it to the committee members first. And then we'll make sure everybody else
raise
gets one.
your arms. I will come around and give you a copy.
Any extras, I'll take one.
If I see the screen.
Thank you.
I need two actually, one for the records. Thank you so much. I should have.
Let me get some more and then I'll come down.
All right.
Okay, the remainders?
The remainder of. Me. I'll take these out. That's it.
Sorry.
Got more? One here.
And wait, two more on that.
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, they got
Committee
two more.
members first, please.
Two.
One more over
He's got a
here.
committee member. He's got another member.
And then one more at the end.
No, all of them have one.
Please.
Everyone's got one?
Yeah, except for us normal members. Regular. Us regular people.
Okay, I will exhibit items here. This single page, it says currently staffing Q1 2025. I will exhibit it as 0430-2025-2.
Second, Amy Ray?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I will exhibit the next item, Bridgeport Police Budget Presentation FY 2025 as 0430-2025-3.
Second, Amy Ray?
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, okay, we can, take it from there. Chief?
So we're just waiting to see if we could pull our program up so we can visually look at it on the screen.
Yeah.
Sorry, right now.
All right, listen, what we'll do while you're getting
We can do that now.
getting up, we'll let Frank,
Okay, all right.
we'll take out O2.
No, Frank's got one more. Share.
Frank, you have the next one?
I'm giving it.
All right, we're gonna let Frank go through his exhibits. We gotta exhibit this though.
Yep.
Can you exhibit this, please, Jeanette?
This one too?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess, okay, what are we calling this, Frank?
Oh,
Police overtime summary as 0430-2025-4.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we gotta be able to hear, okay? Thank you. All right, Frank, we're gonna let you start, going through their budget plus their overtime, and then we'll let the chief present his. And then after you present, we'll open it up for questions, okay?
Yeah, so, just a general overview of the budget. This budget starts on page 179 of the budget book. Page 180 has various revenues for the department. The most notable revenues are special events OT reimbursement, outside overtime, and the outside overtime surcharge. The remainder are generally smaller in comparison, and there are a school bus violation fines in the budget as well. I did increase the outside overtime reimbursement by about $700,000. That was to kind of true up the numbers to where they were actually trending. As you go through this budget, there are many divisions within the police department. They all start with the number 010125, and they all represent different divisions within the department. The way actuals hit this budget is that a lot of like the overtime budgets will be in organizational code 01250, and that's kind of like where a lot of the big numbers are, but then all the division actuals, as they go throughout the year, they'll actually book the actuals to the divisions where like overtime may occur, and then those roll up all against the budget in 0125. So that's just like a mechanical thing. I don't know if people are aware of that. As we go to page 182 is where the personnel summaries begin. So you can see a personnel summary by division. You see an attrition number on page 182 in org 01251. Last year it was budgeted at negative 500,000, so this is a negative number. I increased that to negative 700,000, so that is a budget savings of 200,000. You'll also see asterisks predominantly in 01251, and then in 01259, which is where a lot of the administrative and civilian positions are held. There's a position called police officer certified. Those are essentially lateral transfers from other departments, and so if you see that, you'll see a corresponding decrease in the regular police officer. So I'm looking at, once again, page 182, org 01251. You'll see police officers are going from 169 to 165, but right below that you'll see police officer certified is going from 0 to 4. And those are essentially, interchangeable. So as we go out throughout the budget year, we may see more of those. And obviously there's a benefit to that when you come to training costs and getting someone experienced versus somebody that's newer. As we move to page 184, you can see the summary of position titles. It's an aggregate summary, so rather than breaking it out by division, you just have everything on page 184, all the positions for the whole police department. And I can go over any questions that there may be at that time, for that at a later time. Then we'll go to the individual appropriations lines, starting on page 188. Once again, it is multiple divisions, so there's a lot of lines here. Many of the, like other departments, a lot of the changes here are contractually and salary driven, pension costs, health insurance costs, et cetera, et cetera. One notable decrease that you will see is on page 188 in property rental lease. I did decrease that number to be closer to the actuals in prior years. But that would also have corresponding increases in some cases to lines that may need more money based on how they were trending. As it relates to overtime, I ran the exhibit that was just passed out, just to give everybody, just some background on the police department. So there are traditionally vacancies in the police department. Those vacancies can create, overtime, and so it's a balance between the full-time positions that we have budgeted and the overtime that happens. And usually those can cancel out each other. That's not to say that just because we have the money that people should do overtime, but it is just a natural occurrence of the budget and vacancies. And there is also just a little bit of history on the outside overtime revenue there. And the outside overtime is broken up into two parts, surcharge and overtime reimbursement. And the surcharge, I believe, is $31.50, and that's on top of the base rate that we get paid for officers. So that's all that I really have. I could let them go on to their presentation, or I can take questions, but maybe it would be good to go through the presentation.
Yeah, let's go through the presentation first, and then we'll open it up for questions, okay?
All right, sounds good. So are we able to do it?
Yeah, you're good.
You're gonna be able to flip through it? I guess she'll be able to flip through it.
Yeah, I'm facing this way. Take mine.
Thank you, sir.
Let Ashley get comfortable. So I'll just start with just an open statement. So first, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and present and explain to you our budget and how we spend and utilize the citizens of Bridgeport's money. Because that's the way I look at it. Anytime we spend money, it's the citizens' money that we're spending. And I look at it in that concept. And we respect the citizens. We make sure that all our funds, anything that we spend, all of our expenses are used in a proper manner. And we've done some checks and balances to put things in place to even shore that up even more. And we speak to each of our assistant chiefs, they'll explain that to you a little bit more as well. So again, I just want to reiterate, we take very seriously the usage of our citizens, our taxpayers' funds. So I want to start with that. So I want to start with some efficiencies at best here on the, I don't have the pages number, but if you go to that page. So I just want to give a quick example of where we were and where we are. So if you look at 2005, we had 475 plus police officers. Currently in 2025, we have 310 police officers. And of that 310, 26 are probationary. And so for the most of 2024, that 26, they were either in training or primarily in training. So in reality, you should deduct or subtract that 326 from that 310, and that's what we operated with for the most of 2024 to current. The next slide, it says special assignments and administrative leave. That administrative leave can also be people who are out sick or long-term injured. And so if you just look at those numbers as well, in this particular slide here, these numbers fluctuate and vary throughout the year. So anytime during the year, on average, we probably have roughly this amount of people who are out. So right here, you see it says 26 officers are out for over 20 working days. And that's generally what we average throughout the year. So if you add that 26 to the other 26 and subtract both of those, that's kind of what we work with. We work with for 2024. We have some things in place now. We just did some shuffling, and so we're trying to refocus on looking at people who are out long-term. Some of these are legitimate injuries. For the most of them are legitimate injuries. People were hurt on the job or they are actually sick. So we're trying to work with them to get them back to work as quickly as we can, but being respectful for their injuries and their sicknesses. But this is an issue we have to deal with as well. Also on that administrative leave, there's people who are out for possibly disciplinary issues where we're unable to utilize them because they're out because they were involved in some type of situation and they're under investigation. And during those times, certain offenses that you are alleged to have committed, we can't allow you to have interactions with the public. So that number is also reflected in there. The next slide there, it starts with attrition of officers. Can we go to the next slide, actually? Attrition of officers. This just kind of gives you an example of what we were going through the last couple of years. So I became chief in December of 2022. So in 2022, we lost 24 officers who retired or resigned. In 2023, 38 officers retired or resigned, or went to other departments, I should say as well. In 2024, we only lost 3 officers to retirement or who resigned. So as you can see, we started working really hard at that to try and keep people. And I think one of the big components that allowed us to start to keep people was the contract that we received. I think it was in 2023 we ratified the contract. That really started playing a big role in allowing us to retain people. And I know that's something we had talked about, and the mayor's office was really instrumental in getting that done. And one of the things we talked about was we needed to be competitive to be able to attract officers and to keep officers. So you see that I think we are starting to reap some of the benefits of that contract. We just did an estimate of who's eligible to retire in the coming years, and this is just to show that we need to continue to grow the police department, because if we don't, we're gonna have a huge setback and we'll be back like where we were or possibly worse. So for 2025, 58 officers are eligible to retire. Like right now, we could have 58 people who could leave tomorrow if they wanted. Wow. I mean, there are some things in place now. The state instituted the drop plan, so I'm hoping a lot of those. So with the drop plan, you have to be 25. After 25 years, it'll be 55. A lot of our officers don't meet that. So I hope that we're not too negatively affected by that. By 2027, 74 officers will be eligible to retire. And that don't mean they will. In 2032, 93 officers will be eligible for retirement. So we have to keep pace. We can't not keep pace. So if you go to the next slide. So this slide here, it says breakdown of police accrual usage. So the numbers we have here are somewhat of an estimate. But so what this is, contractually we have to allow officers to take time off. So this is a breakdown of the officers, the hours that, or the days that we lost officers to either vacation, holiday, sick, or personal day. And this is a pretty interesting slide. The DC and Lieutenant Jacobellis broke this down. So for holidays, for officers taking holidays off, right, where they could use their H days to take a day off. You know, with our holidays, we can either bank them and sell them at the end, or we could use them to take a day off. That's contractual. So we had 1,274 holiday usage. For vacation, right, contractual again. One of the things in our contract is we're allowed to allow 12% of the manpower of each shift off at any given time. So we have to allow them to take vacation time, unless there's some unusual circumstance that I can order. No one can take vacation. And we did that to some degree the last couple of years. And so we lost 4,444 days for vacation, sick 3,431, and personal days 567 days for people who use that time. And oftentimes, not always the case, and this is why we have the dollar amount here, is most times when we have these people off, to cover for them being out, based on our current manpower, we have to hire overtime to fill those vacancies. So I just want to point that out. So when people are off on a holiday, vacation, sick, or personal, we have to fill those vacancies. So oftentimes, that is with overtime. Not all the time. Times when we have extra officers, which isn't too often with our current manpower, we're able to plug those extra officers into those open cars. So, and if you just look at that amount there, it's kind of an eye-opener, the amount of money that contractually we spend because of people who use holiday, vacation, sick, or which is time that in many respects the officers need. They need vacation time, right? If they're sick, they need to take their sick time. If they want to take a personal day, we need to allow them to take personal days. And if they want to take their holidays, many of the new officers only have 2 weeks vacation, so they will use the holidays to take some time off. And we talk about officer wellness quite a bit, so we have to allow them to do this. And there are times when we don't allow this. We'll say, if it's July, well, one of the things we did last summer, we would say from June through August, we weren't going to give out H days and we weren't going to give out personal days unless it was, and you had to do it in advance, and you had to do it, it had to get approved from the captain or above, which rankled the union, because we had to deny individuals the time to take time off, which isn't desirable, but to fill the cars is something we had to do. So yeah, that slide is really important. I think that it really just shows one of the areas that creates overtime that is contractual, that it's nothing that we can really do to avoid it other than filling cars. So if you think about in 2025, when I said we had 475 police officers, when we had extra officers, we were able to plug those openings with extra officers because there were so many officers on, we'd be able to plug that. Now we can't. We have no choice but to do it. So there's 3 different types of overtime. There's inside overtime, and there's outside overtime, and there's admin overtime. So it just shows like a breakdown. Inside overtime is patrol vacancies, callbacks. The arena amphitheater is something that we pay inside overtime rate at. It's based on the rate, and the special events is also based on rate. Outside overtime, which the city does get a percentage on top of the outside overtime, is construction jobs, emergency repairs, retail security, things like that. That's considered outside overtime. Administrative overtime is planning for meetings, catching up on paperwork, and things like that. And all of these different areas, except for the outside overtime, we're trying to find ways to streamline as much as we can. The outside overtime is paid by a contractor or a vendor. We have no issue with that. One of the unique things that happened to us when we gave that contract out a couple of years ago, the outside overtime rate for where officers work road jobs, and I don't think this was an unintended benefit that we didn't recognize when we did this, and that means to everyone, the rate for the outside overtime job is equal to a sergeant's pay rate. So oftentimes for officers, it's more beneficial to work an outside construction road job than coming in to work an inside job to fill a car. So we have some issues sometimes getting especially the newer officers, because because they're not at their top step, and they get a sergeant's rate to work an outside road job, it's more beneficial financially for them to take that outside overtime job. That's something I don't think we thought about when we did the contract. We didn't know that was gonna have such an impact, and it does have an impact. We have many officers who, at 6 o'clock in the morning, they'll get a road job and go work a road job, and we need to come in to fill a car, and they're already working on a road job. So we're trying to work things out where we can do something to deal with that. The next slide here is the special events side. In this slide here, all of these rates are paid at, inside overtime rate is paid at the officer's rate. And because of our manpower issues, even though the majority of these events, 99, I would say 95+% of these events, 99%, 99% of these events were not filled to capacity. So oftentimes these events did not have the allotted number or the desired number of officers that they should have had. So when that happens, even though we didn't have the capacity, these events we have to go to everyone. So if we can't fill it with a patrolman, we'll go to a detective, right? And oftentimes we did. If we can't fill it with a detective, we go to a sergeant. If we can't get a sergeant, we get a lieutenant. If we can't get a lieutenant, we get a captain. So we had to fill these jobs. So that's why you saw captains, lieutenants working these jobs, because we had to fill the intersections or the locations that they were needed for these jobs. So again, I just want to repeat, 99% of the time when we had parades or events at the amphitheater, those intersections, we didn't have enough cops to fill them, which creates liability and other issues. We use barriers, and we use officers sometimes going from one spot and they would flop over to the next spot, which is an issue, but we got it done. All our events went without any major concerns or incidents, but that is an issue because it does leave us open to some level of liability. Every year we work with the different organizers of these events, and we always, the first thing we say is like, hey, is there any way we could shrink the size of the parade or shrink the event? Oftentimes, we have very good events and we want these events to go forward, so we let they go forward, but oftentimes we don't have the allotted number of officers. So if you just look at those numbers there, these are the numbers that we came up with for these events. The amphitheater arena, you see we spend a lot of money on the amphitheater and arena. And those events are growing. The number of events I think last year we did 60+ events at the arena. I'm sorry, the amphitheater. I think this year there's even more. Not so much at the arena, but they have events as well. The parks detail, we're working on ways to streamline that a little bit, but as we know, our parks are the best parks in the state. So on a Saturday in July, when Sherwood Island says we're closed to capacity, they keep going up 95 and they come to Bridgeport. And so oftentimes I will get calls from Lewis or someone like, why are you guys closing the park? And we would say, there's too many people, we just can't let anyone else in. So with that, we have to have, because our parks are so popular the last couple of years and they're so nice, we had to have police presence out there. We had a couple of incidents a couple of years ago that required us now to be more proactive and have police presence there. So that's why you see that number. And again, that parks detail, same thing. If we can't get a patrolman, we go to the next rank. And those people get paid at their rate. So, I mean, if you see captains out there on the weekends, we couldn't get nobody else. And to make sure we provided public safety, they were allowed to, and that's contractual. It's contractual that they get, you have to go to the next rank, and it's contractual that they get paid at their pay rate as well. But we are looking at ways, particularly for the parks detail, maybe cutting back a little bit, maybe during the week, ways during the weekdays where we don't need as much, but load up on the weekends, like Friday, Saturdays, or Sundays, or holidays, or when we know there's events. We work with the Parks Department more closely now to, like, we get copies of their events that they sign permits for, and there's some where we'll go, nah, don't sign that permit. We don't, maybe that's not something we want to have, or things like that. But we're trying to find ways to reduce that number as best we can without really compromising public safety to any levels of degree. The next slide, ESU callouts. That's our emergency services unit callouts. And as you can see, a total of 34 total operations that they did last year. And these operations run the gamut from high-risk warrants to support patrol, barricades, barricaded subjects. So this is the team we call out when we have these really critical situations. So 34 total operations. And the team, when they come out, it comes out based on the level of the incidents, you bring out a certain number of the team. Most times you bring out the entire team. And that's just based on their training and the way the program is set up. So this is another overtime expenditure. So when we have events, these people have to come out, and this is to provide safety. One thing I really want to point out with this team, of 34 operations that they went out to in last year, there was only 1 or 2 incidents where they used force. So what these teams do is when they come out with their presence and all that, it really dissuades someone from wanting to resist. So we have very, very infrequent occasions where they have to use force. But this is an overtime expense. The next slide that I'm going to talk about is the scuba call-outs. For our scuba team, not a whole lot of these. Total of 6 operations last year. And you look at the marine call-outs, 35 operations. The marine units on the water out at the parks. 100 safety stops and personal flotation devices checks, and 50 enforcement actions taken for speeding violations. Now, when you look at this slide, sometimes people say, well, why do you need this? Why do you need this in the city of Bridgeport? But if you look at those pictures, particularly the picture of the boat on the right, that's a picture of the background here is Boca. And we know what's happening with our harbor, right? So we project over the next 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, our harbor is going to be like Baltimore's, if not better, right? So to have a safe harbor, you have to have a harbor. They call it harbor patrol, we call it marine patrol. So we have to maintain and provide a level of public safety at that location, because the plan is, you guys know better than I do, is to grow that out where it's the best harbor or marine area in the country or along the East Coast. So we do need to. So right now we have 1 full-time officer who works, and it's seasonal. The marine unit is seasonal. He doesn't work during the winter. During the colder months, he's doing stuff downtown or in patrol, doing different things, he or she. But we also have auxiliary officers assigned that, so in warm weather, we're able to supplement that person with other officers, because they have to go out with 2 on the boat. You can't go out with 1 on the boat. So we do that. And the scuba team, they don't go out much. They go out mainly rescue the people out of water, but that is an overtime expense. The next slide is just a picture of our organizational chart. And now that we have a full complement of command staff now, we're able to break things out much more, streamline that much better. And so that gives us more oversight of the different divisions. We're able to monitor more, not only officer safety and how officers do their work, but officer conduct, and also how we use our overtime. So for the last 2.5 years, it was just myself and Deputy Chief Baraha, and mainly him trying to monitor all the different overtime usage and approvals. So I think we'll be much better. I think we've already saw some savings at part of the beginning of this year in terms of overtime usage. So that's just an example of the organizational chart. The one thing about our organizational charts, these are live documents, so this can change. I know we're budgeted for a certain number of officers, and as we grow the department, this organizational chart will change to reflect how the department changes. The next slide that I'm going to talk about is the demographics. It really just shows the demographics, the breakdown of the department. Really shows the diversity of the city of Bridgeport and the city of Bridgeport Police Department. I think we're close to representing, in many respects, how the city is represented. I think at last we did, our last contract, we got a language stipend for our officers, and we identified, I think, 12 different languages that our officers spoke. So the officers now get a stipend for being able to speak an extra language. They have to take a test to prove that they can speak that language, but we've identified at least 12 different languages spoken into well, maybe some of them speak. Is it 12 we did? 12 different languages I think we identified within the department. And I think that's needed in our city, because we know our city is diverse, and which is a good thing. The next one is the gender, right? So 82% male and 18% female. And if you look at many other departments, we're far superior as it relates to gender, males versus females in our department. So I'm really proud of this. Our last class of 26 recruits, 10 of those are female officers. So we're growing our department. We are trying to find ways with our career development to grow and have more female supervisors. Last year in 2024, we did a women's summit where we had female officers not only from our department. We brought female officers from throughout the state to come in and talk to our officers and other officers from other departments about the positive effects that female officers bring to our department. So, so we really did that, and that was really positive. And as a result of that, this last, back in October, we promoted 3 female sergeants. So there was some positive results of that, so I'm really proud of that. Our females have grown so much so that we had to reconstruct the females' locker room to make it larger. Because before they had like a little closet, and now it's much nicer and they have much more space. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn this over to Uniform Services, which is Assistant Chief Greg, and he's going to give a little overview of uniform services and things that they do, and a couple of things.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So I took over Uniform Services as well as the Traffic Division, the SROs, and the Fusion Center. So as everyone knows, we are so short on manpower. So on every shift is pretty unique, right? So on every shift, we're putting out between 21 and 23 cars. That's it for the entire shift. If we go back, when I first came on, 25 years ago, we were putting on 40 cars. We just don't have the manpower. What else is unique is, we put on roughly 100 new cops in the last 18 months or so. The new generation of officers don't want to work overtime. They want to do their regular hours. I don't think it's just cops, I think it's just a generation of young folks. They want to do their 40 hours of work and go home. So for instance, last year, the summertime, every single day, we were mandating officers to work. We wouldn't allow them to go home. So every single day we were ordering. 2 weeks ago, the whole shift, the whole B shift, the 21 guys on B shift last Saturday was ordered to stay over just to fill the cars. We just didn't have the personnel. What we did do is we tweaked the schedule at the beginning of the year. So last year we had, we lowered the shifts to give more guys on every other day so we could do some proactive details, but we just didn't have the manpower to sustain them. So we tweaked it and added 2 more shifts. So this way, So this way, we work 8 days a week. I know there's only 7 days, but we really work 8 days a week the way our schedule is. We just don't have the personnel. So we're running bare bones. And when there's events, like about 3 months ago on Rennell Street, we had an individual, he went crazy. He had a machine gun at 4 o'clock in the morning after he got into a domestic and the child ran out of the house, was walking around the house on the 2nd floor with a machine gun. We had to, the whole shift, we had to evacuate homes, we had the schools around there, we had to make sure the bus is in, we activated ESU. So we had approximately, ESU, every time they get deployed, it's 20 guys, 20 officers. It's all overtime. And when we had the midnight shift holding the perimeter, we had to hold them over for the B shift guys to come in. But we couldn't let the A shift guys and midnight guys go home because we still had the rest of the city to maintain and answer calls for service, And the running joke in Bridgeport is, hey, if there's a car accident, you're gonna wait 2 hours, right? We all know this, right? Yeah. But what I can tell you is, especially in patrol, you get a shots fired call, you'll have a cop there within a couple of minutes because these guys go flying for public safety. We want to increase the amount of officers we have on each shift because we want to get back. The chief is very, very big on community policing, the walking posts, getting to know the neighborhoods. Our crime, even though we are so short, we've been going down. You look at us against New Haven and Hartford, we have a lower crime rate. Our arrests have been very successful. Our force multipliers with technology has helped, but it does not replace the boots on the ground. One thing we are lacking is a community policing aspect. We're missing that, okay? Folks don't want to see cops driving by in a car.
That's true.
They want to see them out on the foot, and that's our ultimate goal, is to get back to that. But we can't do it now. That's the reality, because we just don't have the personnel, and we have to save our guys. We cannot burn them out. The parks this year, we have the best parks in the state. I mean, folks come from New York, it's like we're giving free hamburgers away. That's how much these guys, we're getting to capacity. But last year, we had 2 incidents where people pulled out machetes. You know, the police was where to stop it. The year before, we had 3 people shot at 1 incident. So we need that presence there, but it's taxing on our manpower. You know, and when folks say, hey, you know, we're spending a lot of overtime, we are, but what we're doing even worse is we're taxing our officers because we're not letting them go home. We're making them stay at work, we're making them answer calls for service. So even the traffic, the schools, the SROs, I ran the SROs for many, many years. We used to have 12 to 14 SROs. We have 3 SROs. City this large, we have 3 SROs. And we hire 2 every single day to supplement that so they can go to calls for service. Traffic division, we had 2 shifts. We have a day shift and we have a second shift. Now we have 1 shift. We have 5 guys in there. We have every year thousands of hit and runs that need to be investigated. We had more fatal accidents last year than we did homicides. Now think about that. More fatal accidents than homicides. And we had 5 guys investigating all this stuff. So 100% agreement with the chief. We can't let our foot off the pedal. We need to hire more officers. We can't go back to where we were. And I believe you will see it. I believe in the first 3 months of this year, we've reduced overtime in patrol, I would say about 20%. And that is because we haven't put the details on, right? This summertime is going to be the exact opposite because now with guys are going to be taking all their vacation time, their sick time, and we're going to be increasing a lot more. But one thing we have to do is public safety. If people don't feel safe, that's an issue. And we can't take our foot off the pedal. Remember, our stats are all going down. We want them to continue going down. This is the lowest I've seen since I've been on 25 years. So, you know, hopefully we keep going. We got a good team now. We're going to build it up. But I could talk for hours. I'll turn it over. I know everyone wants to go home.
I want you to comment on grants.
Yeah, just.
Actually, if you could go to the grants.
These are just some of the grants that we have.
Okay. So like the grants, we're very, very competitive on the grants. You know, we make it, you know, we apply for whatever grants we can get, and we use that money to supplement basically buying stuff, tasers. The last 2 years we got JAG grants. That money's really, when we get these federal grants, to go to our stuff that normally we wouldn't buy, but because we don't have the money, we've been buying tasers with it, right? The fusion center, you know, technology in there. We've used some grants to expand our camera program. We bought 2, from the grants, we bought 2 mobile units. And if anyone's on the east side, we just put 1 at the church on the east side. They were having a lot of car breaks in. It reduced the car break-ins 95% at that location, at the church location. So we're using a lot of state DOT grants. Click it, ticket. We've made it a priority that the money we got a couple of years ago, we had to give a little back because we just didn't have the manpower to get it. Now we've got the 5 officers going pretty much every other day enforcement to reduce the fatalities and the cycle stuff. So actually, the last 2 days, we towed 4 tractor trailers. It's never been done in Bridgeport before. Never been done. We did it. We said enough's enough with these tractor trailers, and we towed 4 of them. Funny story was, one we towed today, the owner went back and stole it out the yard that we towed it to. Then we arrested him and got the money anyway.
All right.
Right? So we are focusing on that. We've also abandoned autos. We have one guy who's focused strictly on, he's towed about 400 cars in the last 3 months to try and clean up these streets. So we are working in patrol. And like I said, with a grant, whatever we can get, we're putting in for. So.
All right. So next, Assistant Chief Posey is going to talk about some investigations. He is going to give you a quick overview of what it takes to investigate certain types of crime and the cost that is associated with it.
Good evening, guys. I'm not gonna be that long. Tired after foul. We say amen, yes. So my background, I spent 26 years in Waterbury, very similar city to Bridgeport. Spent most of my career in investigative services, and we had similar issues with manpower and being short in criminal activity. So a couple things that, first off, I've only been here about 6 weeks. And under Chief Porter's tutelage, each week, we're able now to see what we're spending each week, where the money's going to for the investigative services unit. So my job right now is gathering data to see where most of the money's being spent. So far, with the first few, or 4 or 5 weeks that I've been here, some of it is just contractual with minimum manpower for supervisors and minimum manpower for detectives. So as patrol is short, the DB is also short. So hopefully, as we get more officers, we can run a promotional test, because just by having more detectives, it'll decrease the workload. And there's stresses on the detectives also, because they do have an enormous amount of cases that they're working on. And in my opinion, you have a top-notch detective, police department, but the detectives are very good. High solvability rate with homicides, I believe right now is at 100%. So there's been, and with other crimes, curse it. All right, but anyways, there's certain tasks at a crime scene that have to be completed. It's a task list just like at your jobs. There's certain things that have to be done. One is the collection of evidence, document it, photograph it, identifying witnesses, suspects, and talking to the witnesses and the victims. But the things that are more time consuming, and from the matrix study that we had, it's the things that create the most man hours is video retrieval, cell phone data and cell phone dumps, and social media. One cell phone that you confiscate, like in a homicide, I'll just speak, because a lot of the crimes are similar, but just if you take a homicide with one cell phone, it could take 30 hours just to work on the case, between doing search warrants, because everybody in this room has constitutional freedoms with your cell phones and your social media sites. And the court is strict, the courts are getting stricter and stricter each time you're looking for stuff. They don't just give you everything that you need anymore. It has to be within specific ranges and specific times. And you have to coordinate this with the state's attorney's office. And you have to do it no matter if they give you the information or not. It's still very time consuming. And once you get the social media to document everything and go through it, it takes like 80 hours. If you have a solvable case, it's 30 hours for a cell phone, 30 hours for video retrieval to go through everything and document it, and 80 hours for the video retrieval, and 80 hours for social media just to go through everything, connect everything together. And then you have to work in conjunction with, like I said, the state's attorneys to put warrants forward if you can make an arrest. But even once that process is done, you're still working on that case, because yes, you can make the arrest, but in order to get a conviction, you have to keep working and following up leads. And every time you talk to like a witness or you get more information, you have to corroborate all that information. Now, if you're talking about like a robbery, sometimes you just come up quick and rob you and there's not much to go on, they might be maxed up. But some robberies, if there's, like a Facebook market book type thing robbery, or there's a gun involved, or we have video retrieval, we have something to go on, even a solvable robbery, it's still, you have to go through the whole task list of evidence collection. If there's any DNA, if there's shell casings, whether it's a homicide, a robbery where there's fire, where the shots were fired, you gather the shell casings, you put them in NIBIN, you see if we can connect other crimes to that. And it's the same checklist that you go through. You still have to work with the state's attorney. You still have to, if there's any type of cell phone evidence or, social media stuff, you still have to do all the search warrants for that, and it takes time. And usually you're working together. So if me and Chief Grech are working together, he'll know about my case and I'll know about his case. In case he's off, I can pick up his slack. Or if I have time off or have to go to training, he's going to continue following the case for what I'm doing. Now, burglaries. Nationally, 3 out of 4 burglaries are unsolvable because there's no evidence, there's no witnesses to go on. But burglaries, if you have an astute detective, and you have a lot here, the burglary squad, I believe, has 3 people between robbery and burglary, and they just solved the case recently. It came over a period of time, but an individual got caught for something else, and he confessed to doing like 10 burglaries. But had he not confessed, we would have never been able to close them out. You have every crime is high liability, but one of the biggest liability issues is your sexual assault investigations and domestic violence. There's where if you make a mistake on those investigations or you don't fully investigate that, the city's open for liability. Now, last year when I checked the records, there was 206 sexual assault investigations amongst 4 detectives. That's 50 apiece roughly. That is a lot, and these sexual assault investigations can be very complex and very time consuming. Especially because usually with that, there's some relationship mostly between a suspect and the victim. And again, especially if it's an adult and a juvenile, you have to get cell phone records, you have to get social media accounts. You have to take the victim, you have to get cooperation between the parent and the victim to get the sexual assault kit done. Then you have to, if it's a juvenile, you have to set up with the Family Children's Center for a forensic interview. If you have all the tests you have to do with the sexual assault, and it's similar to even a homicide, but the man hours can go anywhere from 30 to 69 hours for one case that's solvable. All right, so there is a lot that goes into these things. And the only other, our proactive units are task force officers. Those are the ones that are working on narcotics cases, the street crime. It takes a lot of surveillance. You need CIs to go in to make buys. You need 2 confirmed buys. You have to work with your state's attorney. And we have a good crew. You're working with the ATF, we're working with the DEA, you're working with the FBI. And you're collectively working together. This is why your crime rate is low, but it's something that you still have to be on. You can't just let it go because it's low, like the chiefs are saying. I think I went over my time. I've been here 8 weeks. I think I did 8 minutes. Is that fair enough?
So, actually, let's go to the slide for. I just wanted to show one slide there, the warrants issued, if you could just take a look at that. And it just shows the number of warrants issued by the Protection Bureau the last 2 years. So you can see in 2023, they issued 1,234 warrants. In 2024, they did 1,201. And if you look at the traffic division, in 2023, they did 30 warrants. In 2024, that was increased double almost, 2,000 to 61 arrest warrants that they applied for. I just wanted to, before the DC comes up, just mention one thing. So when we talk about man hours, not all of that is overtime. Some of that is straight time. So I don't want you to think that all of the time that we investigate crimes is overtime. So we do use, officers work 5 days on, 3 days off, so it's not all overtime. That's man hours. It can be overtime and their regular shift. Just want to clear it. Jim?
Thank you, Chief. I'm Deputy Chief Baraha. My part of the org chart is the administrative services. So in a nutshell, administrative services is built to provide services to the investigative branch and to the operational or patrol uniform branch. So some of my units are the police academy, fleet services, the police record room, the evidence room or property room, anything with a technological component, and fiscal services. So one of the key things is the police garage. So if you look there really quickly, we threw up some quick numbers. So for a complete refresh of the cars that the officers are using to respond to calls, we would need 42 units. We've been very lucky and very appreciative of the fact that we've been able to put 7 new Dodge Durangos out there, and we were requesting an additional 10, which is going to keep us afloat in a good way. Obviously, we have 3 full-time mechanics. They're pressed every day to kind of just keep the fleet up and running, and they're very savvy in terms of being fiscally responsible, using parts from one vehicle to bring another vehicle to life and such. So we're very proud of that. We had a project that started under Chief Porter where cars had their tint removed. We felt it'd make the cars more open and more approachable for the public. And out of our entire fleet, we've removed 36 vehicles to date. This process is ongoing, and there is a no tint policy for new car purchases that Chief Porter put in place. If you could go to the next slide. One of the real successes that the Chief and Chief Greg put together is the LexisNexis platform. You're going to see a little link there, an URL address. Any citizen can go on there and see a close to real-time map that's been anonymized showing all the crime trends in the city of Bridgeport. You can search for 24 hours, you can search for 3 days, you can search for a week, and anyone can click on that, and it gets updated near real time. So we're using that and we're pushing that out, not only internally, but externally, so people can see what's going on in our agency. Now, one of the key things that we keep in mind before I turn it over to the chief is that everything since Chief Porter came into agency has reflected the pillars of the 21st century policing model. So you'll see that, and I'll let the chief expand on that. But all of our efforts have been very, very focused on upholding these core principles.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Dr. Bells is going to help me here. I just want to make one point of reference. When Mayor Giano became the mayor in 2015-16 election cycle, he bought roughly 70 cars or so. 73 cars that he purchased. Right off the first couple of years there, he bought 70. Now, it's been 10 years now, so we're at a point, and we've only been replacing them like in piecemeal, I believe 10 at a time. So those 2015-16 cars are now 10 years old. There's no more warranties on those any longer. So we're at a point now where we need to replenish the fleet more. So I just want to point that out. The mayor did, right soon in 2016, he bought 73 cars.
Good evening, everyone. Yep, so you can go to the next slide. We just want to talk about how Chief Porter has been adopting and implementing the 6 pillars principles. So one of the things is officer recruitment and retention. So he's already mentioned officer wellness as far as the time off and that sort of thing. But we also have installed peer support within our department. So a police officer can go to another police officer and talk about things that they've been dealing with, whether it's a personal issue at home or something that they dealt with on the job. He's also been pushing a lot of college level training courses, career development opportunities throughout the department. We also have the lateral transfer program that's been pretty successful so far. We have several officers that have come to us from other departments. We saw an exodus of officers from our department to other departments, so this is our way of trying to get some of that replenished, right? In February 5th to 25, just recently we had the 26 recruits, right? They just graduated the academy. They're still in their FDO program, which is finishing up the next couple of weeks, then they'll be full-fledged, and they'll be able to handle helping us on reducing the overtime that we've been experiencing in patrol. And then there's a new academy class that we're hopeful to see about 30 recruits out of that. That's what we've been approved for by post, which we operate under Connecticut Post. So we're hoping that we'll see that 30, and that'll begin June 9th.
Just to touch on the class that we got approved for, so we were unanimously approved for that class. I just want to make sure we were unanimously approved for our next recruit class. So right now it's a minimum of 30, but I was on the phone with the director of post yesterday, and if we get more, if civil service is able to hire more, we'll be able to get more. We'll be able to send some to their academy in Meriden, or we can get approval if we have enough space to add to our police academy. But that just depends on how many people we are able to hire. So, the next slide, the leadership development. This is something I'm really, really proud of, that we're developing leaders in our department. We have partnerships with the University of Bridgeport, Sacred Heart University, and University of New Haven. You just look at some of the schooling that we've sent our officers to, the number of degrees. I'm really proud that, so right now we have one of our lieutenants is at the FBI National Academy in Quantico. He's about to complete week number 5. So, and we sent another one of our lieutenants to the Police Executive Research Forum program up in Boston. He graduated from that. We have another one of our leaders who is at the University of Chicago. He'll be graduated in May from that program. And we're sending another officer to that program at the University of Chicago in July as well. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Sure. The next slide is all about technology. That's my primary focus now in the department. Chief Drek mentioned the JAG funding grant, so we're going to be utilizing one of those JAG funding grants for the purchase of new tasers. We are really behind the 8 ball on getting tasers. Our tasers are over 15 years old, and they're supposed to be only used for about 5 to 8 years at most. So we're kind of like hanging on by a thread on that. We did purchase 50 last year. We really need about 150 more, but we're able to do this out of the JAG grant. So if we can get more money on that, that would be great to try to fulfill that. And that's less lethal devices, so that it gives the officers an option to go from a firearm right to a taser, where we're dealing with a different type of use of force. As far as the drone program goes, we currently own the 3 drones, one is the whiz bang, you know, the best drone on the market. And then we have 2 other much smaller drones that are used by the ESG group, and that's for like internal use within the building to help with searching the building, to try to keep our officers a little safer in that regard. And so that's something that we're considering looking at as far as providing officers and commanders with real-time air support, which normally you'd only be able to get with a helicopter. We know a helicopter is millions and millions of dollars. There's no way that we can afford something like that. So we're hoping that this might actually work here. And then, of course, the forensics lab and the NIBIN, which was mentioned. I think Chief Capozzi mentioned that. NIBIN is how you compare ballistics that are obtained from scenes as evidence. So, and we use NIBIN to connect this gun to another crime, and then once you have that person, that suspect arrested, you know that, okay, they're responsible for this shooting, and then you can start putting the cases together. So they're all really great programs that are there.
Just to really quick touch on the technology again. So Monday I was at a conference in Chicago with the mayor. It was a conference of mayors, and they brought their police chief. And technology was a big thing that we talked about at that conference. And one of the things that he and I both were really proud of is that a department our size, every technology that they talked about, we had or we were looking to get. So you had Chicago and these really major cities there, and they talked about their forensics labs and their NIBIN, and we told them that we had our own lab where we do those things. They were really, really impressed with the things that we were doing here. And just to touch on the drone program a little bit, there's some advances in the drone programs that I know maybe in the future that we're looking at, and that company was there. And I partnered with a police chief from Arlington, Texas. And they talked about the way that they use their drones and the way it helps in investigating crimes and responding to calls for service, and the reductions that they've seen. So we're looking to, you know, technology doesn't replace officers, but it is a force multiplier, and we're looking to grow that even more. The next slide is our neighborhood policing. I'll touch on that, and I'll try to, I know we're trying to go fast now. So hopefully, well, we are. When this new class of 26 get off the FTO program, we're going to put neighborhood police officers out. So we're going to have officers out. Right now, we've identified Stratford Avenue, East Main Street, and the Hollow, where we're going to have foot patrols, and our housing communities. We're hoping to do the housing communities, but we're definitely doing those 3 neighborhoods that I mentioned. Future, we're looking to do Madison Avenue, a walking detail, and Black Rock to do a walking detail. We already have downtown, as we always have downtown. So that's something we're looking to do when this class is off the FTO program. East Main Street, Stratford Avenue, and the Hollow will see walking detail. And hopefully we'll be able to do the community, housing communities. Just again, our community outreach programs that so midnight basketball is starting again on this Friday. Hall Neighborhood House, and the 2 Boys and Girls Clubs. In the fall, we're gonna do another Citizens Police Academy. Our crisis intervention team. Yeah, I'll introduce. So Linda Lubin is one of our social workers from our crisis intervention team, and so this is something we work with the health department, and we have, and they're doing some really good work. And if I can just get to the slide which shows their numbers, I think you'd be really impressed with the numbers that the calls that they've responded to. So we're looking to grow this our team as well. So we are hopeful to be hiring another social worker to work with us. We currently now in the Bridgeport, we have 63 Bridgeport police officers who are CIT certified. We have 1 social worker. We have funds to hire another social worker so we can do an evening shift. So the numbers that you see here is all based on the day shift. When we take it to our C shift, we'll be able to provide much more services, many more services to our citizens who need these type of services. So really excited about our crisis intervention team and our partnership with the health department. This is something this is a national program that other cities do. We need to grow ours, but you can see they're doing some good work out there. It's a really good program. And the next slide shows the calls for service by month. If you go to that slide.
That's this year.
This is for 2025, the first quarter of 2025. So they're rolling. Every day they're out there responding to people who otherwise would get a police officer who might not be able to provide the services that they need. The other slide is just, we talks about transparency, another one of the pillars, just some things that we've been doing. We're gonna continue to double down on these things and really enforce these even more. If you go to the next slide, it just kind of gives you a comparison of us with the other two major cities in the state of Connecticut, New Haven and Hartford. So you can see, obviously, Bridgeport is the most populated city. Look at the number of our offices versus the number of offices that New Haven and Hartford have. If you look at that, right, absorb that number, and then go to the next slide, and you look at our crime rate, our homicide rate versus theirs, right? So we had less officers, and we had lower homicide rates than Hartford and New Haven. I think we attribute a lot of that to our technology, but our officers do really, really good work. They're the ones who are the reason why. And I think we like to say we do smart policing, where we target the right individuals, we target the right neighborhoods, and we bring all of our forces together within a department as well as state, federal, and other agencies with local to really target these individuals. And I think that's the result of why you see our numbers the way they are. The next slide just talks about the number of shooting victims compared to Hartford and New Haven as well. You can see again, we are lower than them, and we are lower than the previous years as well. Okay. The next slide, it just shows our first quarter review. We started doing this, we're gonna do quarterly reviews, but this is the first quarter of 2025, our crime stats for the city of Bridgeport. Other than our motor vehicle thefts, which are up, but no, there is a down. Felony larcenies. Our felony larcenies are slightly up, 36, with 42 as opposed to 36 this time. But if you remember earlier in the year, we had those smash and grabs, and we had those kids going out, breaking into cars. I know it, Michelle, they were in your neighborhood, I mean, your district. What we did though, and this was an overtime expense, we put details on the midnight shift, because that's when they were doing it. And they would just come up randomly, smash and grab and take off. And they were hitting other cities too. Milford was getting hit, Stratford, other cities as well. We put a detail together on our overnight shift, which again costs money, and we were able to make several arrests, and we, knock on wood, we kind of, staved off a little bit at this point. So I just wanted to show that slide. The other slide, the last slide there in the back of that, is our shot spotter review. And it shows too, the number of rounds and shots fired in the city of Bridgeport has been going down as well. I attribute that to our overall community, the culture is starting to change a little bit. So we're not getting as many shots fired calls as we did in the past. And the next are just some future initiatives we want to talk about. The schedule change, this is something that we talked about when I first became chief, and as well as something that the Matrix study also talked about, trying to look at a different schedule. So right now we work a 4-day, 3-on week. We're looking at maybe a 4-day work week, maybe 9 hours. And you can see the top page week was, I think Chief Grep talked about the squad changes. We went from 4, now we're back to 6. And that just gives us more coverage. Well, it gives us more, the 4 gave us more coverage. We were able to do more proactive things, but the 6 now we're able to plug in, and those squads are much more efficient. That's helping us with cut costs in terms of overtime. Well, ultimately, the squads are affected by not having enough police officers in those squads. So the more cops we can fill those squads, and that'll reduce the overtime as well. So that's the shift change. I'm sorry, the schedule is something important I think we want to talk about as we go into our next contract season with the union, to talk about being able to implement a 4-day work week. Many other cities do that as well, and they've found some good benefit. The next page is just some snapshots of the Matrix consultant report that we pulled out. Many of these things that were in the Matrix study, we began to do already. We had already started doing some of these things that we thought were effective even before we got to study. And other things were taken out from the study. So we really have to dig deeper into the study. There's things that we're already doing, there's things that we think we would like to do, and there's some things that we may not like to do, and there's some things that we can't do because we don't have enough police officers. But we're gonna really absorb the study and take some of the information in there to see how we can fit it into how we do business here in the city of Bridgeport. And the last slide there is, I hope to see this one day. Whether I'm here or not. If I can see the picture, right? So my theory is, if I see this picture with some stakes and some plot of land somewhere, I will say I did something positive in the city of Bridgeport. A future building, right? So we've done the the study already, and on May 14th, right, actually, May 14th?
Yeah, May 14th.
May 14th, we are going to interview 5 different architectural firms to listen to their presentations, and we will be choosing an architectural firm that will do the design for the future Bridgeport Police Headquarters. So something I think we really need. I think it will improve our ability to hire and keep officers, and I think it will be positive for the community because they will see a first-class police department, and I think it will just go a long way. And no matter where we locate it, it will just bring vibrancy to that neighborhood, right? It could be the anchor of that neighborhood. I think, so I'm really hopeful that we can do that. I mean, that design is something that we just kind of generated, or she generated. So yeah, we're going to be May 14th. There's a committee already put together, and we're going to be interviewing some architectural firms. But I just want to conclude with, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come in and present our budget presentation with you. And I want to reiterate, regardless of how we spend money, anytime we spend money, it's with thought, it's with care, and we try to make sure we are as efficient as possible with the use of the dollars that the city of Bridgeport and the citizens have entrusted us with. So I really want to share that. And finally, I say this all the time, or I said this before, when I said this at our command staff meeting today. Every time I go to some conference and there's police departments from other parts of the country, and so the way they sit you when you go to these, and I've gone to 2, so I don't want to seem like I've gone to a whole lot. They sit your chief with your mayor, and there was over 40 chiefs and mayors from different cities. And when we sit through this presentation, I always see things that we are always ahead of the curve. So I hear them talk about new technologies or new policing strategies or new things they're doing, and I sit next to the mayor and he goes, "Do we have that?" I'm like, "Yeah, we got that, we got that." So we are much further than I think we believe we are. I think we're much further along than I think our community or some people believe we are. We are headed in the right direction, I believe, in terms of public safety in the city of Bridgeport. And we really need to embrace our successes and stop being beat down by the negatives. Because every time I go to these places, we were in Chicago, and there was Chicago there was Akron, Ohio, there was Fresno, California. All these cities are bigger than Bridgeport. And I'm just looking at the things that they're saying, I'm like, we check every box, or we're on our way to checking every box. So I just want to share that. So I'm really proud of my department, I'm proud of my officers, and thank you for the opportunity to come in and share this information.
Thank you, Chief, for coming here this evening. I have 2 questions and then we'll move it on.
Okay.
One being, and I hate to say this because then I got to listen to all the grandfather jokes. But in 1981, when I was president of the council, the mayor then, Lynn Fairletter, used to say to Joe Walsh all the time, "Who says you need 400, and I think it's 485 police officers?" I always hear the police department talk about we're understaffed. Police study that just was put together, we've all read it, said that a police department of our size should be at 330. So I hope the time comes when we can move away from, if I had more police, I could do a better job. Because they haven't shown me anything that says you need 400 police officers. That's the first question. The second question is overtime. I can't understand that we give people overtime, but they can't tell us what they did. You can't document it. I don't have a problem, but if you could show me they got 6 hours overtime and this is what they did while they were there, I could respect that. Because the public has no way of knowing. But if I come in and do overtime on settling a murder, But I can't tell you how many hours I spent on, something's wrong with that picture. So I hope that we do a better job of documenting. I needed him, and he put 5 hours in for 5 hours pay. I can understand that, and I understand that's not happening. So could you answer?
Yeah, so I'll do the first question first, so when I first became a Bridgeport police officer, we had back then 450, 60, 70. And back then they said we should have 512 police. That was what they said, we should have 512 officers. And obviously it whittled down. Do I think we'll ever get to 400 police officers again? I don't know, maybe. But I will say, if you just look at the vacancies that we have, right, and the cars that are empty currently, it shows that we need, excess of 350 police officers. So right now, we have a total of how many empty cars?
29.
We have 29 empty police cars in the police department. So even if we bring on that next 26, right, and I put them in those cars, we're still short. But that means I put them in those police cars. Those are just calls for service, right? And you measure how they do based on the calls, right? That means I still don't have a full traffic division. That means we can't fully go out and investigate, fully do traffic enforcement and create traffic safety. I can't fully staff the SRO unit because we don't have enough school resource officers. I can't fully staff our narcotics and vice unit to go investigate those vice crimes and things like that because we don't have enough to staff them. And we can't fully staff our detective unit. So those numbers just don't jive with the number of calls for service we get. I mean, those staffing numbers don't necessarily jive with the number of calls for service we get and the number of investigations that we do. So what's happened in the city of Bridgeport, crime is going down because we're doing some smart policing. But the calls for service and the investigations are still at a level when we had much higher number of officers. So I think that's where the study is necessarily not in jive with my thinking. And just my ability to do neighborhood policing. To do neighborhood policing, I really need 12 to 16 police officers to have them out walking in the neighborhoods that I want. So we do need to grow in those areas. So having a bare minimum, we could just cover cars maybe. And again, if you look at the sick time, that doesn't take into account people who are out sick, because we're going to lose people for sick, vacation, and things like that. So I'm not saying we need to have 450 police officers or 400, but we need to continue to grow, and I would say north of 350 is, and that's something we could negotiate with. That's kind of where I am. On the second question, you must have been listening to my conversations with him and him and him the last couple of days, because that's what we've been talking. I think you bugged my office, because what we've been talking about is why that person want to come in. Well, what do we get out of that? And what do we get out of that? So now with the team in place, we can really dig deeper into that and determine why. And I will say, for the most part, we can show why they came in and what they did. So in the patrol division, when we have to fill a backfill for a car, it's hard to measure their effectiveness because you have to fill that open car. So when they come in on investigations, right, now they have to show, and most times we can show, hey, I came in because I'm investigating this homicide, and I had to interview this witness. So those are things that we're doing now. One of the things that we, earlier in the year, early last year, with DCF, I had to meet with there's a regional director of DCF now, and we met, and one of the things we met about was, and this goes back even, started before I became the chief, with issues with DCF and how we investigated crimes involving young people, children, and things like that. So we put some things in place where, and that costs money because DCF wanted to know why is it taking long to investigate certain cases involving children. So we did some things now where we're investigating those cases much more proactively and much more aggressively. And I think that is, we can explain that, but when it involves children, sometimes we can't say everything that they did, but we can show they're working on investigations involving children, which, again, DCF came in and they were really critical of how we had operated the last couple of years. And we put some things in place now to address that. We have a DCF worker assigned in our detective bureau, working on our detectives. As Assistant Chief Capozzi mentioned, we go to the Center for Family Justice to do forensic interviews. And so we're trying to get those cases resolved much quicker. So we are now, we've gotten things, and not that we didn't have it before, because our officers do, they do have to justify why they came in, but now they have to justify it more. So we put a system in place where no one can put their overtime in without, number one, you have to get prior approval to work overtime, and then number two, it's gotta be approved by a superior officer. And each week, these three look at we meet, like, how much overtime did you spend here? Like, well, what do we get out of that? Even on our homicide investigation, right? And we know that's a very serious investigation. That first 24, 48 hours, we let them go, because they need to try and get it while it's hot. And you see, most times we solve our cases. But as the cases drag on, you know, we don't think homicide is serious and sex assault, but we question more, like, well, where are you going with this? Like, are we making progress? We're just not gonna come in to spin our wheels if we're not making progress. So we're always looking to make sure we're making progress and, you know, using the hours and the overtime effectively. So that's a really good question, but we are cognizant of that. And like I said, we just had these conversations. He got it more than anyone. Like, what are they coming in for? Like, I'm not gonna just let them come in if they don't have a legitimate reason. Give you an example. We had a person say, one of our detectives say, I want to come in and work on like a case from, I'm not sure if it was a shooting that happened like 5 years ago. And I said, well, it's 5 years ago, like it's not urgent now because it's unless you got some concrete information to identify the suspect, what are we coming in for? You know, but we do have an obligation to work on cold cases because we owe those families, we owe them that to continue to work cases. So, but that's a really good question.
We got Councilwoman Vizo Panicia, Councilwoman Herron, Burns, Martinez.
Michelle.
Oh, and Beverly.
And Michelle.
And Michelle.
Thank you for your presentations. It covers a whole lot of questions that a lot of folks have had over the time here. But going back to the budget, the events, you had 6 large events posted for the parades that the city has inside. But is your department being properly compensated plus a little extra for this, you know, use of cars and administration fees for the non-sponsored city events, the non-city sponsored events that are being held in our parks and on our streets? We see that, and I know I mentioned it to you a while ago about the amount of requests that are coming into the Parks Board. And it gets to be overwhelming, so I just wanna make sure that your department is being compensated for that, and it's not just a wash.
So, that's a really good question. And so, you know, I've had meetings with the Parks Department to say, hey, you gotta help us out a little more. Like, we bear the burden of a lot of this, as we should, because we're public safety.
Well, you're supposed to, and I was informed that they were supposed to be charging. And they're supposed to be charged by your department.
Yeah, so if there's an event and the permit required, no. Oh, all right. If the event,
Turn that ear off.
so whenever there's a permit, if there's based on the number of people and the type of event, we'll tell the Parks Department they need to hire. They need to hire police officers. So that organization will have to hire police officers, and then we get compensated for that. Yeah, we do. It's not a lot of that, but we do get compensated.
Well, there's quite a few events that are, that's why I'm
well, not
worried
all
about.
of them require police, so we don't make, if someone's having like a birthday party.
No,
or a
the
kid,
ones that
we
are,
don't-
no, those I'm not, I'm just talking about the ones that go before the Parks Board that are anywhere between 50 and 3,000, 4,000 folks.
Yeah, we work with them and say, of course, we make them hire cops, and,
No, I understand, but I make sure that
Yeah, we get-
you're
yeah,
getting
for
paid
those.
for that, but you're not getting, it's not gonna be, you have to get a little bit more, because you're not just for the bodies, but you have to go for the use of the vehicle,
So-
and for some administrative fees, because that costs you money too.
so so that would be through the outside overtime office. So there's an outside overtime rate that organization will get charged, and that's what they get charged. If they want a car, we charge, I think, $25 more for the car per hour for the car. So, yeah, we get reimbursed for that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And we, oftentimes, they have to pay before the event.
They're supposed to.
They're supposed to,
Right.
yeah, they pay before the event.
All right, thank you, that's it
You're
for
welcome.
that one.
Good for now.
Quick for now, yes.
Councilwoman Herron?
Thank you. Chief, your staff asked for a fleet of cars, or a couple of cars, 10 cars. In November, myself, Rich Ortiz, and Dave Reyes sent you information about a pilot program Stanford is using now, and has anything been done to check on
About the electric cars?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we when I got the information, not only you, the mayor, he sent me something on electric cars. So we work with our garage, and he put out like a mass inquiry to see who did those, and he didn't find very many people. I think the one that you guys talked about, yeah, they didn't get electric cars, but I know they had the preview. And our guy did reach out to try and get people to come in, and we weren't able to get anyone to come in to give us a demo. But that is something like the mayor did mention about, he talked about Teslas, so I don't know if we're gonna.
Tesla.
Yeah, you guys gave one and there was a different one, but we did inquire about that.
The only thing I ask is if we bring that information to you and you are trying to contact, or somebody in your office is trying to contact, and you don't get anybody, can you please reach out?
Yeah, sure.
Because if we gave you the information, we were able to contact them.
So we gave it to our garage, we have a, what do we call it, fleet manager of the garage, and he had a lot of cons versus electric cars.
They can have a con, but if it's gonna be cost effective and we use certain vehicles for that model and it's a 5-year, no cost to us as far as maintenance, I don't see why we wouldn't try at least a few of them. Just saying, I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
No, I
but
understand.
it's something that I'm a little disappointed that now we're being told nobody was able to contact, because we've contacted. I'm good, yeah.
Reverend Lee?
Yes, first I would like to say the police department remind me of the school system as far as overtime and substitutes are concerned. You know, I think that, you know, unless you're working in that field, I think you don't realize the strain that it put on the classroom and the police department when you have to, you know, because we don't get overtime for taking on a class or whatever the case might be. You got it, so you deal with it. That's what it is. But I you know, I can understand that. But my question is about the breakdown of the police actual usage. For those let me see, no, it's the, let me see, oh yeah, right here, special events, that's what I want. Special event. Why the parade that we have, why is somebody else beside the police department, why do that have to be in your budget? Because I look at the special event and I think that this is so funny. The June 10th parade is we use $2,000. And then I see let me see, I believe that the Black Rock Day Parade is $10,000, which is whatever. Then we start going up to $60,000 and $26,000 and $20,000 and all that. That's a lot of money for a parade, if you ask me now. You know what I mean? So if Juneteenth parade and the Black Rock Day Parade, those the lowest one on the thing. If they can cut theirs down, why can't some of these other cut theirs down? Because the parades is in your budget, right? Huh?
We have funds to cover the special.
I mean, is it in your budget though? I mean, you know.
We have a special event to cover these events. But it's probably not at that amount. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you that. So one thing I wanted to just mention about, I can show the differences in the different events, is that it's the locations that kind of drives these. So like the Juneteenth parade is within Seaside Park, so it's easy to contain. I would love if everybody had their parades in Seaside Park, because it would be easy to contain, it would be less police officers. But many of these other parades are on city streets, so at Juneteenth parade, we really could do with just very few cops, because it's contained within the park. One thing that we didn't put on here that I want to mention is going to be, you know, based on the national trends that we've seen recently in Vancouver, with people happening in New Orleans, with people using vehicles to ram. You know, I'm really concerned that, you know, I'm not necessarily saying we have no intelligence that it's going to happen here in Bridgeport, but we need to be aware of large gatherings. Like Assistant Chief mentioned, like Porch Fest, when we have these large crowds that are out like that. Those are things that we need to talk about as well at some point, because you know, we see these And usually it's copycats, they'll do it here and then do it somewhere else. I'm sorry, Rev.
So, okay, no, that's okay. You giving me the information that I need. So in other words, when you make your presentation and your budget is, I'm just saying, $20,000. It's not $20,000. Okay, then the parade is not considered in that $20,000. You have a special fund that you don't get from the city that pay for those parades?
Yeah, we do, we have funds, we get extra to cover these events. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the taxpayer don't pay for that, for those parades?
Well, they do.
That's the taxpayer money.
City money.
The money in this budget comes from the taxpayers.
Yeah, everything,
Okay,
except for the
yeah, 'cause
outside.
Can I go through the channel? Let me just clarify. 3 years ago, I asked that the former OPM director allocate funds, a special line for parades. And for the last 2 years, we never got a breakdown like this. This is the first time, so thank you, Chief, first time ever. I've been asking for like 6 years, never got it. After each parade of how much we actually spend of the actuals. This is the first time we've ever gotten it.
Okay.
And for 3 years, it was told to us that it was going to be about 80,000 every time for all the parades and events. So
Really?
Nestor would allocate and the council would approve an additional $80,000 of overtime, which I don't see it in the line here. Is it in the book? Because Nestor had made a separate line item for this, or he was supposed to make a line item for this. Every year I asked him to, he never did it. So we would allocate 80,000 extra dollars to quote unquote cover parades, but we never have been able to receive the allocations until this time, this year.
But not for but not 80,000 for every parade. That's
For
80,000.
for all the events for the parades.
Now that makes sense. Give me 5.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, now, the last thing I wanna ask, my second question, Mr. Chair. Okay, because I think that we should go back to that, because that's a lot of money for parades, you know what I mean? Ain't that much parade in the world. So, as far as I'm concerned. But my last question is about the SRO. I was in the meeting, in the Board of Ed meeting, when they changed the SRO to the police department and all that carrying on and stuff. Is the SRO in your budget too?
The school resource officer, are you talking about security?
Yeah,
You talking about school security?
Yeah.
They're not.
They not?
No.
Okay, so you don't have anything to do with that?
Well, we do have something to do with them, but we don't have anything to do with the funds. But we don't get the funds, but we do kind of oversee the school security, we help them out.
Oh, there was no point in me saying anything else about that, because I think that it should go back to how it used to be, because it's different when an SRO person drive up to the school than a police officer, you know?
Oh, you're talking about, so we have 3, we want to expand that. That comes out of my budget to cover SROs. Yeah, you're talking about the old school cops, that's gone. But we have 3 SROs, we had at one point 14. So we're looking to grow that, but that comes out of, that's my officers that we would allot.
But then they police officer though.
Yeah, they're police officers.
Because the other SRO wasn't police officer.
SROs are.
Yeah.
No.
I think she's talking about special police
The
officers.
others were security guards or,
I've been in school system for 35 years.
Yeah, they were special.
Steve Nelson was not a police officer. He was, and the other one was they not police officers, and there's a difference between the SRO and a police officer, because when you come up, when he be at our school a lot, I know, oh, here come the police, but when those SRO come, it's just like they are part of the community and they part of the school because the kids know them. Not that you all not doing a good job, but I'm talking about the budget and the cost that goes in there, and we need to go back to I know that this don't have nothing to do with that, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? That for the kids and for that budget and for the teachers. Now I like for Captain Greg to come on board. I like for him to drive up there because he give me special attention. But the fact of the matter is when the kids see that. Because, see, our school is a mess now, you know what I mean? And you know, some of them need to see the police officer, really, they really do. But there's a difference, you know what I'm talking about? So I'm not gonna say, cause I don't think, Scott, that don't have nothing to do with the budget, do it?
But I just wanted to say, like, when,
You do?
one of the things that Rev mentioned,
Yeah, it does.
so one of the things we try to do is we try to meet with these event organizers, like the special, we try to meet with them before each event. And we try to come up with some compromises, and some have come up with compromises to reduce or do things a little bit differently to help us not only be able to man it, but also it would cut costs as well. So we do work with like the organizers of each event to say, you know, and we've had some success in making some small changes to routes and things like that.
Yeah.
But we have done that, so.
Okay, would you all consider that? Would you consider that? Those SRO?
So I wanna, so what Rev mentioned was, so we used to have special police officers. So people like she mentioned, like Steve Nelson, they were special police officers and they were hired by the Board of Education. That's gone. You can't have special police officers in the city of Bridgeport anymore. So the police department, we have SROs who, they're Bridgeport police officers who we assign to the school corridors, and they do some interactions in the schools as well. So we wanna grow that more. And when we had a number of them some years ago, they did more stuff in the schools. They did a lot of, they taught DARE, they taught GREAT, and so we had more interactions in the school. So we're trying, we just have to grow
That's what we
to
need.
get back to that.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, we used to teach DARE, and we did a lot of activities in school. Yeah, Harold, and,
Because,
officer-friendly program and things like that.
Because I want to get upstairs to that 8th grade class at our school. I want to get up there so bad because they're totally out of control. And they need a mama voice or a police voice or something up in there. I'm telling you. So there you go. That's all I have to say.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The real one's back. It's my turn. Sure. Well, I got a bunch of questions,
Did
but
you skip me?
I'll go with two right now. One is I just want to actually piggyback on Councilwoman Herron's point, and a little, you know, concern even from us on the budget status, because we're under the impression that patrol cars have been replaced routinely.
So,
from our
we're
previous.
not at the number
let me just
that-
finish, let me just
All right,
finish,
go ahead.
please, thank you. That the, you know, previous OPM director was kind of replacing them semi-routinely, and I know we got a list some time ago, and so most of the chargers are older.
Yeah.
And I know, and I'm seeing here, you wanna buy more Durangos. I think, you know, you gotta consider some of the patrol cars if those are getting up in age and wear and tear.
So the Durangos are patrol cars.
You're considering those?
Durangos are just SUVs.
Yeah, those are patrol.
Those are not
Those
gonna
are
be
used for
patrol?
patrol.
Are those cost effective?
Yeah. It's cheaper, and with our weather, when we have bad winters, they're more efficient. And one of the benefits, right, one of the unintended benefits from the Durangos is you can't drive them too fast. So hopefully it slows the officers down. Those Dodges had those Hemi engines, and you know, in a densely populated city like Bridgeport, it was probably not the best thing when we bought those Dodges.
Okay. Well, it's a, yeah, I just wanna make sure we're buying appropriate cars for appropriate people. You know, making sure the patrol is really taken care of. I got more of that. The other question I'll just combine, the staffing study suggested that the Detective Bureau in particular needed a case management software program. And then I know also the department with Mr. Reyes is looking at a overtime software program. Are those in your budget? Are you planning to add those? Where are we on that?
So, and I'll let Lieutenant John Cabela's and Captain in the DC and assistant. So we have a Chronos system in there, and NextGen, where it has some case management ability. So it just wasn't being utilized to its full capacity. So now in the DB, we've created a case management system. We did this probably a year ago. We started doubling down on a case management system within the DB, so we can track how many cases an officer have, when you got the case, well, first of all, what type of case it is, when you got it, and status on where you are with that case incrementally to see how well they're doing in terms of the cases. So we do have a system in case management system. We can use Chronos or NextGen to monitor those things.
We did that at no cost.
Yeah, and that was at no cost. That was a program that we had.
In this order.
The other one though?
Yeah, what was the other one?
The overtime software program?
That's a private company.
Yeah. Are you talking about the, you talking about off-duty manager?
Off-duty manager, yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we're still in the process of, we had they did a presentation. So this goes back to a couple of years ago when I first introduced that. And we just did a presentation. We brought in Ken Flato's office and other people, because it's something that the police department, we would like to do that, but it would have some effects on other things as well in terms of how they are paid. They get money from the vendors. So that's something we just had that meeting a couple of weeks ago. So we're finally moving that along. So that's something we want to do. We're one of the last departments in the state probably who give out overtime jobs by calling on the phone. We want to get to where you can your jobs, you get an app and you can click on and you see the jobs and you hit it and you'll get your job. And that will free up that will help us civilianize the outside overtime office. So that's something something I want to do.
All right, Councilwoman Martinez.
I just want to mention one thing too.
Right ahead, Chief.
You mentioned about the vehicle. So so we're looking at patrol and detective. Our detectives need new cars. Some of our detectives are driving 2007s and 2006s. And so every detective car or patrol vehicle has to be able to operate in emergency mode. And some of those cars should not be operating in emergency mode. So when we talk about fleet, we're just not talking about patrol, we're talking about the detective bureau as well. And some of our task force people, that's our roles with new cars.
Okay, Councilwoman Martinez, Councilwoman Lyons, Spell, and George. Oh,
Okay.
and
So my first, is not a question, so don't consider it as a question, Mr. Chair, but to the chief. I would like to know with regards to your committee selection for the new police department. How did you come up with a committee selection?
That wasn't me, that was Michelle Otero from, what's her?
Buildings.
Buildings.
All right, I'm only asking because I'm the liaison to the police commission and as well as I sit on public safety, and I wasn't aware that there was a committee to sit on a new police department.
Yeah,
That's
that
why I
was,
was asking.
I'm on it.
And as an elected official that's very involved in the police department, I wanted to correct, I
And I'm
wanted
not calling,
correction
that's
on
just
that.
how they asked me to be on it.
Thank you. So, maybe, Frank can answer this question, but I have a question on this towing services on page 189, 56035. So, and you're fresh new to this, Frank, but let me just address why I'm questioning this. Because for years, our police department had ran a scandal with the towing, not under your leadership, Chief Porter, with the scandal where towing companies were charging $25 for cars to be towed, and the revenue was not being shared under our budget. So,
That's operational, you're talking about the line in the front revenue.
Yeah, so I'm asking for both, though, I wanna know for both. So under towing services, what is that line for, Frank?
Towing services,
It's on page 189.
189.
56035.
I'd have to pull the detail. I would imagine that's probably towing services, like if we need to move one of our vehicles. I don't.
Okay, all right, so that's clear. So can we go to the operational compartment of it?
That was operational,
Revenue, I'm sorry. The revenue compartment of it. I would like to know where are we with the revenue on the towing?
Yeah, so I know that there was something that you're mentioning, like legal issues with this.
Yes.
So that's why I did reduce it pretty considerably. To my knowledge, those issues haven't been resolved, so I don't think we've collected anything against this line. But the thought would be that would be resolved, for the next fiscal year. So I did, because there's an uncertainty and, I don't wanna speak, because I don't have all the knowledge, but
Yes.
that's the justification for it.
Okay, so with that being said, because that will still be a line item of revenue, chief, and although we're not authorized to make any changes within your department, that is your jurisdiction only, all we do is vote on this budget and vote on additional monies for you. I would like to see that, this towing department be transferred out of the police department, and perhaps maybe not even out of the police department, but perhaps maybe into the hands of Assistant Chief Grech, if possible, because he is dealing with a lot of the tagging and towing and moving and so forth. But that's just a recommendation, you don't have to elaborate on it right now. I would like to speak on, I think Amy Marie Vizio Panicia, you covered that with the revenue from overtime road jobs. You are receiving that?
Yeah,
And that
well,
comes through
goes
the
to-
separate,
Yeah, the offices get that, and
Okay.
the city gets a percentage of the overtime, overtime jobs.
where do we have the revenue for, say that like a bar or someone hires overtime police, is that through the
Outside
overtime
overtime
office?
office.
Okay, all right. Now, I have a critical question. Couple years back on Golden Hill, there was a shooting.
Okay.
That's a state courthouse.
If it happened outside, it's Bridgeport. You're talking about the one in front of the
Yes.
court? That was ours.
So you all have to take on all of that investigation, and it happened on a state court, but although it happened outside, so the
Started
state
from-
doesn't reimburse you all for your time that your officers are conducting an investigation.
No. So that's a good question, right? So, it's a good point. Like, so in the city of Bridgeport, right, like cities like New Haven, Bridgeport Harbor, we kind of bear the burden of all of the social services, like whether it be courthouses, hospitals, other things. So even like in, if there's a call at the probation office, right? Probation is a state, they call it Bridgeport Police. So we bear the burden, right? Our cities, have to take on more, so my offices have to respond to calls at the hospitals, which is in Bridgeport, we understand that, but, so yeah, we do have to do those things. If it had happened in the courthouse, it would have been the state, but outside, it's ours.
I think maybe you all to connect with the legislative to see how they can reimburse the city for the time, because these things are happening. I mean, that's what state police are for. They should be handling
And
something.
we had a shooting some time back, and, we ended up, first they said it was Bridgeport, then we were like, no, it happened on the on-ramp to 95, so we were like, no, it's Schuylkill. So, not that we're trying to disrespect anybody who's hurt, we wanna make sure that there's a proper investigation, but there's also some jurisdictional, concerns that we wanna make sure, if it's ours, we take it, we have
But
no.
then your department runs into overtime, and they're actually just kind of finalizing sentences on these cases. So those were long, drawn-out investigations where a lot of hours were put in, where we talked
Oh,
about
yeah, that's
overtime
a
and,
Good point.
so.
And so in those cases, we use, we partner with, our task force people use that, so we do get some reimbursement from,
All right,
federally.
not yet, through the chair, hold on, just have two more questions. So, we were talking about cases, and, sometimes you have to go from officers, sergeant, lieutenants, captains, and for overtime, right? So, is that the case where, when there's a homicide and, say the chief or assistant chief they respond to that? Is that because they're called to respond to it? Is that because you wanna respond to it? What is the payout for a higher ranking officer? Cause that would be overtime, and that'll be at a high scale.
Well, yeah, so, well, if there's a homicide, and say the captain who's in charge of investigative services, the detective bureau, that captain, would go to a homicide, and they get paid overtime. Now, we try now to monitor those captains to say, well, your role should be to make sure they have the proper resources they need, and we don't need you out there all day long. You go make sure they have the proper resources, the scene is secure, they have all the proper equipment. Now, it may require them to stay longer, but, we are cognizant of that. But yeah, so higher ranking officers, if they get called out to, crime scenes, they get paid overtime.
Okay, and then that includes.
Not us, though, no.
That
I
includes
don't get
yourself
overtime,
and any, DC assistant chief?
No, they don't get overtime.
Okay,
I'm working almost for free.
okay. And,
I am anyway.
this is my last question. Well, add me back to the list.
All right.
Thank you.
Lyons, Spell, George, Amy Marie, and Scott, and then me.
Okay, I'll ask my questions and then I don't have any more.
Go right ahead.
Where in the budget, I know that Sacred Heart University puts money into the police department for supposedly Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, okay, because we initiated that.
Seasonal too.
Right, seasonal, we initiated, where is that in the budget here?
That's not in the budget, that's outside overtime.
That's considered outside
They hire three
overtime?
outside overtime.
Now, and that is on all these, because
No,
there's
that's-
a big argument on this all the time about whether it's on a consistent basis or not.
Well, they do it, they do it when they want, basically, but we have an agreement where they hire it, they'll do it up until and they do it up until December, right? And then they, yeah.
What's the months?
So they'll do it during the school year?
Yeah, but then he cuts back at some point. They cut back at some point, right?
Yeah, they're pretty consistent.
Summer school breaks, like when they go home, obviously they don't hire anymore.
Yeah.
But it's different times that they will hire, and that's through the outside overtime.
Okay, if it's an outside overtime, that would not be in the budget here then, right?
Yes. In the outside overtime.
It would be under outside overtime?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the budget, okay.
And the one thing about that too, right, is, so we have a working agreement with Sacred Heart.
Yeah, I
So
know
we
that.
can't necessarily order them to hire. We
No, I know, I
strongly
understand.
encourage, and I know you strongly encourage them to hire. And they're pretty consistent with doing it. And I know there's been times where we're like, well, why aren't you doing it longer? But that's a fight between me and Gary. We go back and forth on it.
Well, that's all right, we can get into all that later. The other thing, which has always been my pet peeve, is the accidents, with our police officers are taken off the road during, because of our phones, everybody, city council, don't your phones go off all the time? All because of so many accidents, so many car accidents. I mean, how much, now, when that is in there, that officer is then taken off the road, so where does do they have to work overtime with that? Because have to do the accidents and they have to continue on working their regular route at the same time? How does that work out financially?
So if it's a regular, if an officer's working a regular car, he gets an accident, that's a regular call for service. So if it's during his normal work hours, he doesn't get overtime, he just continues, he works the accident. If it goes beyond his regular work hours, he gets overtime. Now, if we have a major accident where someone's seriously hurt, we'll call out our major crimes, I hate to use the word fatal team, our traffic reconstruction team. And so they would come in, if they're on duty, they just go, we don't pay them overtime. But oftentimes these happen at night, and they get called in, they get overtime. And if you saw, we did, I think, 60-something warrants for, yeah, so they do get overtime if they come, if it's a very serious accident. But the regular day-to-day officer, if he goes to just a regular accident, that's doing his regular course of business, he don't get overtime for that.
Okay, and I just wanna, the leaders that, this is the last one, the only question I have, because you had three, so I got three. The leaders that you are used for in the department, okay, the leaders that you're talking about, where are they gonna be used, in the police department, and financially, what's gonna benefit the city and in the budget?
You mean
for
these
that?
three guys?
No, the ones that you sent out, the ones that.
Oh, so that's,
FBI
so.
How are they used to benefit the financial?
Yeah, that's good, so they're already members of the department, right?
Right.
So that's specialized training so they can become better leaders and become better supervisors. That's the purpose of sending them to those leadership programs. And so it just helps develop them more and helps grow their skill set. So the way they benefit the department is they come back with a greater skill set, better leadership abilities, and they're able to pass that on to other officers below them and run their different divisions or units much more efficiently. So that's how we benefit. I'm a product of going to all of those leadership development programs as well. And that just helps us develop future leaders within the police department. And a couple of the schools I mentioned, we don't pay. Like the
That's-
FBI National
that's what I
Academy.
was wondering.
Yeah, the FBI National Academy, we don't pay. That program at the University of Chicago, we don't pay. At the Police Executive Research Forum in Boston, we pay for that. But the other ones, we don't pay. The federal government pays for that. And the one in Chicago, they have a grant. Actually, the mayor and I, when we were in Texas, the mayor got that program. It's this, they got like this $35 million grant. They bring officers from all around the country, and you go to Chicago. They go 1 week a month for 5 months, and it's like all this leadership development training that the officers get. So we sent one. He's graduating in May. We're sending another one in July. But it's all expense paid. They pay for airfare, food, lodging, and all of that stuff.
Thank you.
And the FBI does too. We don't pay for that. They pay for
All right,
all of it.
Councilwoman Spell, Councilman Cruz, Councilwoman Amy Marie.
So,
Did you put me back on?
I said I put you back on, I thought you were gonna ask me.
alrighty then. So, I'm just curious, cause I'm looking at the budget and under all police divisions, right? School crossing guard, it's 0, but you have a budget for 1 million.
So the crossing guards are under the police department, so they should be budgeted for, right?
They are for 1 million,
Yeah.
but there's no number in regards to how many positions that actually
We
entails.
have it fluctuates between 80 and 100 crossing guards.
And they're usually on the low end because there's always issues with keeping crossing guards. Yeah, and there's a lot of more seasoned people become crossing guards. And so it's just hard to. And we need crossing guards. Trust
I'm
me.
gonna let Frank, could you add to that, please?
Yeah, just similar to kind of like other seasonal or like part-time lines, they're pooled positions. So we just budget for the dollar amounts. The number doesn't show, because it's just subject to such fluctuation, so.
Okay. My last question, number 2. Your midnight or your late night basketball? Midnight basketball for your youth. How much is the budget usually?
So what we did was, we kind of are like the middle person who, when we first did it, we went through the council and we got a grant and we did it. What we do now is the nonprofits, they deal directly with the funding source. This is a program out of Harvard. This is Educational Foundation. It's kind of like it's a part of Project Longevity. They deal directly with the nonprofits, so we don't. They deal directly with them in terms of providing the funds for those different organizations.
And it's needed.
I would just like to say the program is phenomenal. I actually went out and sat and watched the kids interact and play. And something to put out there is that on a Friday night, for you to have a gym full of kids enjoying themselves, not fighting, not arguing, getting a full meal. And from what I was told, they actually talk to like the store owners and bodegas around so that when the kids are leaving, there's someone watching them. And I do appreciate that.
No, it's a great program, and so it starts again Friday night. They don't have enough funding because, I guess this is all right to say, like, the person in Washington cut a lot of the federal funding for some of these programs. You can say it.
You can say it.
All right.
He didn't cut our funding
too. So right now they are able to do Friday nights. We hope they're able to do Saturday nights, like we started with Saturday nights. So one of the things that we're gonna do is, I like to send police officers. So we send our postcards to make sure the kids can walk home safely. But we also, there is an expense where I will have some officers go on overtime to interact with the kids and be a part of the program.
All right, Councilman Cruz, Councilwoman Amy Marie, Councilman Scott Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions, to be honest with you. I just got a comment. Take advantage of it now instead of waiting for a public safety meeting. I just want to say, I want to thank you, Chief, and your entire team for the great job that you're doing. That's the bottom line. I see the statistics. They're extremely low, very low, and that's because of your leadership and your team. The other thing I just wanna say is that, thank you for taking the tents off the officers' cars, you know? But I also would like to see more enforcement. Oh, what do you think? I get this a question. We got people now covering the whole car with tents. And I have an issue with that. Especially because you can't see nobody in there. So it's very unfair that we are demanding that your officers, our officers, be transparent, but yet we're allowing the regular public to take their windows, the front windows, very dark, you can't see nobody. What do you think about that, Chief?
Yeah, so it's an officer safety issue, right? So if our officers have to pull them over, they can't see. So I would rather people not do that. So we do have some enforcement mechanisms, or we can do some enforcements for the tents. There's some equipment violations, sometimes there's a monetary fine that we can do. But I'm always cautious right now of, so the purpose of motor vehicle enforcement should be for traffic safety. And we just have to make sure we hold our officers' hands and make sure that we're pulling people over for the right reasons and not any contextual reasons to stop people. But that is a concern, like, so, you know, when we pull them over, we can give equipment violations because it's a public safety issue for an officer safety issue. And also, people who drive cars with tinted windows, you can't see. So, you know, but that's something that we.
I mean, I can see the driver's
sides.
window, the back window, and the rear window, but I'm talking about the front windshield. That's the one that concerns me.
Well, I think the front and then the driver and passenger side, we need to be able to see.
Yeah, to
if we
be
do
able to
motor
see.
vehicle stuff.
Yeah, but you got tinted windows out there in the front, Councilman Hodges, that the front windows are very, very dark. You can't see. And it's very unfair. How could if there's been a description or something and you're looking for a certain car or whatever, but you can't see the person inside. But the last thing I want to say is that I want to thank Chief Craig. I've been having issues in my street with people who have been leaving cars for days on, months on end. And I'm asking to see if we could enforce the ordinance. There's an ordinance that people can now leave their cars out there for days, or weeks, or months. And thank you, Chief, for that. And I got the parking department involved, and they went and put tickets on them. Regular ticket, not orange ones.
Right.
I think that we need to do that citywide. I'm asking my city council members, in your streets, in your districts. If you get those calls, we all have to be on the same page and be consistent. They're not, the people just take the orange sticker off and move the car somewhere else. Let's call the parking authority, if the ordinance is a violation, have them put a ticket that they have to pay $40. As many as possible.
Yeah, so that's a good point, and I just see her over here. I know Councilwoman Amy Marie Vizzo is really big on that. Well, so a car can't technically. You're not supposed to park a car on a city street for more than 24 hours without moving. They can give a ticket. So, you know, our officers are always selective, or they have discretion. So if it's someone who lives there, you know, a day or so, but when we have people who leave them for long periods of time, we come out and give a ticket. And she was having that area up over there, like Gadulick Street and around that area as well. So.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Amy Marie, Scott, Anita.
And Heidi.
All right, now, after Alfredo, our council president.
Thank you.
And please ask, just listen. Please ask 2 questions. Unless y'all want to spend the night here, to midnight. Just ask your 2 questions, let them answer, so we, you know. Go right ahead.
Thank you. We're still having trouble with the tractor trailers, and I noticed they're back under 25 on Main Street. And we've got the signs up there, one's for, there's 2 tractor trailers there with the cabs. There was one there up until last night with no cab, just a trailer. But since they come with 2 different tags, are we able to give them 2 different tickets? Or because they're attached, we can just give 1 ticket? I think we keep being more proactive and ticketing them. They won't stay there as long because it's a hazard, safety hazard. Because there was cars pulled up to it last night, but the truck still stayed there. When I left here about 9 something like that.
let me,
But it's like, that would enforce it, but it would also add to the revenue. And I know there's a certain amount of money that we can collect and keep, et cetera.
So we're looking at things a little different nowadays, tractor trailers. It's getting ridiculous. They're parked all over the city.
Right.
Right? All in
Without the
residential.
cabs, right.
So what we're gonna do, what we started is we're gonna start towing them. And they're $1,500-$1,700 every time you tow one. So we have to tow them for a hazardous condition. We've had the engineering department come out with us and we're measuring the tires. The city ordinance is overnight parking, which that needs to be adjusted. I know I spoke to Anita about it. But we're going out measuring their hood cap to the center of the street. It's gotta be 10 feet. Less than 10 feet is a hazard and we're just taking the truck. So we're gonna do a couple a day. Trust me, the word is gonna get around that we're towing these and then they won't be parking there. It's gonna take a little time, we're careful, because we don't wanna, we wanna make sure we're on the right side of the law doing it. We wanna be effective.
As long as we're enforcing that, the ticketing and the revenue part of it.
Yeah.
And just as something that Councilman Cruz says, is there the meter still to check the tents? Because
Yeah,
they're supposed to, because I
we know the clear violations, they're going,
but some have health situations that need the tents.
but they're doing the front windshield, completely the front windshield. So, and all these tint places are just tinting them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do enforcement, and as we build up the traffic division, we're gonna be, right now, we've got a grant, distracted driving, and that's part of it, right? Because you can't see through the window properly, so we are coming down in enforcement with that. So you're gonna see a difference, it's gonna take some time, it's just so far out of control.
And on the budget side, what Councilman Scott Burns was mentioning too about the SUVs, we're not gonna be the only ones. Many cities and towns in New Haven County, that's all they're buying. Norwalk, they just bought a ton of SUVs. So they're not going back to the regular vehicles because it's safer, they're higher up, they can see more, plus because of the weather conditions that we have, whether it's snow, ice, or the rain and flooding. So I think that'll be an asset to the city on that part of it, even though it's gonna cost us a little more, but it's good.
okay, let me say this, I'm gonna be nice. If I don't hear nobody talking about numbers, I'm gonna ask you to go out in that hallway and ask your question to one of these deputies. Okay, cause y'all can talk about SUVs.
Well, it was a budget thing, because you're worried about the cost on the SUVs and the gas and the stuff of that nature and the purchasing of it, so we wouldn't be the only city purchasing them, they're purchased for a reason.
All right, Scott, get us back on track.
Okay,
And then Anita-
question, actually going to your capital request. There's a item about Evergreen Street where your animal control office is. Can you explain what's going on there? 'Cause, yeah.
Yeah, so right now, Evergreen Street is where we have our dog pound. So for many, many years, we had a company that was renting, a landscaping company that had like an acre back there. And they were renting it for like $100 a month. We evicted them a few years ago. So now what we want to do is, we have nowhere to put these cars. When we seize these cars in homicides and all this stuff. So now we want to blacktop it, tarmac it. We have a house there that's fallen down. We want to fix it so we can process homicide cars, so we can drive through, do the processing there, and keep them there. It's going to be effective and it's going to be efficient. It's going to save us money. And what Frank said before is, he took money out of our rental. We reduced rents. We got away from River Street, which was costing us $60,000-$70,000 a year, and we put it on Howard Avenue. It's the same thing here. If we're trying to cut our costs, use our own property. So we will save a lot of money by doing it and be more effective.
So when there's a certain type of crime and we seize a car, we have to hold it for prosecution. So we have no place, we've run out of place to keep cars. So that's why we need additional space. And also to process cars, for DNA or other evidence, we need a better place to process the cars. So that's why we're looking to expand that, because right now we're in our garage or they're in our department, and and oftentimes there's people walking by the cars, they can contaminate the car. So we're just trying to create an environment where we can process those cars. And sometimes we have to hold those cars for trial, which could be
Yeah.
You know,
2 to 4 years.
Okay. My second question will be in the same place. Animal control, my understanding they had some, issues running out of money fairly early in the year. I know they also had concerns with, vaccinations. I know one person, was actually bit by a potential adoptee, and she had to get rabies shots. So are we adequately funding that department for all their needs?
well, I mean, so I know last year, and so they ran out of funds quick because for the vet bill, so Bridgeport, we get a lot of strays in Bridgeport.
Right.
So there's a vet bill, and there's all the food. I know we've tried some, we've advertised to try and get donations to help with food and things like that. So, in, the last year, the cost for food and the vet bills have increased. So that was an issue last year. Yeah, we have to care for the animals.
Right, so the question is, are we protecting ourselves, our employees, our animal adoptees? I mean,
In terms of the dogs biting people?
yeah, and in terms of, do we have the budget to take care of that facility? We know it's heavily used.
Yeah, I mean,
especially
I'm just trying to, so if they bite someone, what do you mean, keep them separate from someone? If the person's gonna adopt a dog and the dog bites them while they're adopting them, it's kind of, I mean, a bit out of our realm of control.
So if a dog is aggressive, when they bring you in, they put the dog down.
Yeah,
They don't keep the dog.
but he's talking about a dog who was gonna be adopted.
Right.
And he bit someone.
I mean, they're animals.
Yeah.
Right, so Mike, ask the question again. Are we adequately funding that department to make sure we vaccinate all our animals and all the rest?
So again, I think that's something we could look, maybe we do need more funds to not only pay for medical bills, but vaccinations and things like that. To make sure dogs not rabid or have rabies or something like that.
That's,
Oh, they do? I think that's what he's asking. Like,
That's what he's asking.
vaccinated, yeah,
Yes,
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, if you
And the
want,
facilities there, have you?
okay.
I mean, we'll see if the person gets rabies and we'll know that they go. But if you look at the facilities there now, like, and I don't go there often,
They all get COVID.
but they do keep them separate, they have some space here. And the girl who supervises it, Jen, does a good job of keeping the dogs. But it's, animal control is, it's not like it used to be, so we don't have a lot of strays like Bridgeport used to have.
Right.
But I know she's aggressive in trying to get them out of there to find a place for them.
but while you do have them there, you should have some funding to
Yeah.
feed them, to get them shots, whatever that is, and that's not in the budget, so that's what he's asking
Okay.
you, all right? So,
They get a cold.
It says 15,000 taken
is it 15,000?
I'm gonna put
Yeah.
15,000.
15.
They get a cold.
I'm gonna get- Councilwoman
We did, but it was.
Anita, Alfredo, and I.
Chief, this is pertaining the actual budget, and I just wanna, I want you to be transparent with us, because as you know, I support the police department. I don't support all your officers, but I support those that I believe in. 260 cases for detectives when our chief was detailing how investigations are done. Monday through Friday, 8 hours, some 30 to 69. You go into overtime, right? Then you have your motor vehicle traffic division that you didn't talk about, that investigates a lot of fatalities.
Well, we put the warrants like that they've done.
Yeah, but that's a separate department from, we just talked about 260 assault, rape and assault cases, right? So my question to you is, for you to be transparent as to what is it that you truly need from the council to help your department solve a great portion of this here without tapping into so much overtime as you have been, because outside of needing officers, we understand that. But what else do you need that will help you? Because it's my understanding, and perhaps this could be rumor, allegedly there's 18,000 motor vehicle cases that are open. I don't know how true it is, and you
Yeah,
don't
it-
have to elaborate,
Yeah.
but how can we help your police department?
So I think that what we've explained is like, our caseloads are high, right? Because we're short officers, we're short detectives. So the way we can help is continue to fund us, so we can continue to hire more police officers, so we can continue to promote more detectives, so they can reduce the caseload. And so when you look at that number, right, and the assistant chief would know better than I, right? So if an officer has 50 cases, not every 50 cases is like some major case, not every one of those cases is something major they're working on, that requires overtime. But, you know, the simple answer is, yeah, it may not be the popular one, is we need more people, more detectives, more officers to be able to investigate these cases. Same thing with the traffic division. Right now, I just added one or two people, we added 2 more people to traffic along with the sergeant. And, you know, they get a lot of hit and run cases. But that 18,000 thing of hit and runs is not true. So in the state of Connecticut, after a year, hit and run cases, you can't prosecute anymore, because unless there's a serious act, some injuries or something, prosecutors won't even prosecute them after a certain amount of time. But we've done some things to try and address the hit and runs or evading responsibility cases, with having our interns vet the cases. But you know, a lot of that is, well, I won't say that.
Don't say it. That was only one question, this is my last question, okay? So it's all in one, chief. So you said funding, so funding meaning like for the academy funding and all that type of stuff is what you're referring to?
To continue to grow the
Okay,
police
no
department,
problem.
so, and that's when we talk about the number of officers we should have, right? So, to have enough detectives, we have to have more than the numbers that, number of officers, because officers become detectives. So we continue to have to grow, so we can add more detectives to reduce that caseload. That's the best way to reduce the caseload.
But that goes into your promotional list, but this.
Yeah, and I
this is
can't
not-
promote unless I get more officers, because if we promote, that means we have less police officers to respond to calls for service.
Now, who's your grant writer?
We use the Isolima's office. We don't have a.
We need to really push for our grants office to really help our police department.
She does, and she does, she does.
In a higher volume, and I'm gonna go with
So-
my council colleague with regards to security at the schools, because we had an incident at Jetty Tisdale, and we didn't have no security there, that could have been an incident with a
security guard.
fatality. So, I mean, we need fundings, I mean, even I'm not gonna call them school resource officers, but even the officers that go to the schools, you're limited.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
just,
we have, we can't
Yeah.
name no names, we only have one person running around with her head
Yeah.
cut off like a chicken. But I'm done, thank you.
Alfredo, Councilwoman Heidi, myself, and Jeanette.
Chief, just got one quick question that I've just been trying to figure it out. How is it a police officer is working and going to school at the same time and using the time? I don't understand, and who's paying for that?
so that's a good question. So first, right, many of us went to school and worked, like I did it.
Me too.
I did it, I went back to school, it requires some balancing and, you know, and also you have to give up certain things, like you don't get to work a lot of overtime and things because you go to school, and it's a commitment to, you know, grow your knowledge and things like that. So, but the other part of it is the city has tuition reimbursement. We pay 100% tuition reimbursement. So, like I mentioned, how those officers that got those degrees, yeah, the city pays for that. That's a part of our contract, that they pay 100% tuition reimbursement.
Well, how do they balance? I don't understand. You're
It's
saying
called,
you need-
work-life balance. You know, it's not easy, but it's not. But a lot of people do it, not just in our industry. People who
Me?
yeah, a lot of
I
people.
do.
Other fields, they go to school, but it's not easy. But when you do it in the police department, it's some sacrifices you have to make. So.
You sure do. Councilwoman Heidi?
Thank you, Chief. I guess, Chief, I know that you mentioned the CIT program, and thank you for being the chief that took this on board, because we've been trying for, I would say, almost 4 years to get it on. So thank you for embracing it fully. I appreciate that. So I know the next social worker, is that going to be an evening social worker that we're looking to hire?
That's what we wanna hire, yeah.
And do you know they anticipate that maybe start time with the next one?
So we are starting another hiring process. We had a hiring process, and unfortunately, the person that we had hired, who was really good, turned down the job. So we re-engaged that hiring process. We got 36 applicants. We're gonna interview 6 people. So we should have somebody, hopefully, before we get into the really warm season.
Okay, and then, I lost my train of thought for a moment. My other thing was that I just wanna say in the staffing study, the numbers that Councilwoman Martinez referenced of open cases doesn't reflect in the staffing study, because I know DC Barajas, for traffic incidences, that number's not there, so.
No.
I would say that, I don't know, that's not what we got in the last staffing study, so I wanna say that, that number is inaccurate for cases, to your credit, to your department's credit, but, the other thing was, oh my God, I lost my question.
Well, I did say allegedly to the chief's defense.
There's a lot of allegedly when it relates to.
Oh, I got it right here, here it is. We just recently passed, I don't think, and this might be to you and to, Frank, to OPM, but, Chief, have you had anybody applying for the hookah lounges permits, because those are revenues?
That's a good question. So we just,
that is a revenue that is effective immediately, so.
yeah, so what we did was actually put together a nice application. And so we are advertising on our different sites that they all need to start coming in to fill out these applications and get these permits. And so we're trying to be nice, but we're gonna start checking and going out to see who's done it and who hasn't done it, and if they haven't done it, they can get shut down or receive a fine. So we put it out, we put it on social media, our sites, to say, hey, these are the requirements. I think even the health department gave us the list of all the people. She sent out letters to all of these establishments. I can check our record room. I don't know offhand if anybody started to come in to do it yet, but we've put it all out there. And, you know.
If you can get us the number of what you have, so we can
Okay, yeah, we'll see if anybody started to come in yet.
into the revenue, but this is a revenue.
Yeah, and then probably, you know, these are people who, they probably ain't gonna, we're gonna have to.
We're gonna be mad, but.
Yeah, we're gonna have to force
So
it.
sad, too bad.
Yeah.
So that was my only question, because, it wasn't on your slide, and I think it's really important that we talk about.
Okay, I
so
should
that we
have put
have
that
it.
ordinance, yeah, that'd be great.
Well, cause it's gonna be a revenue
Yeah.
driver for you as well, so we gotta make a line item for that, or would it go under permit hall, public permit halls?
Probably permits.
Permits, so then
'Cause that's
that would
part
mean
of
an
permit.
increase in your permits.
Yeah, it's a license fee.
There's a license revenue line.
Right.
It's a license revenue line?
Yeah.
There's a revenue line for that.
Okay.
But those are gonna be people who are gonna be, you know,
Chief,
But you're doing a good job with that, Chief.
yeah, we got to fight with them
Yes.
people to get them.
the disparity study also mentioned that some of the positions you have your police officers doing in the police department, civilians could do it.
Oh, I agree with that.
So are you looking at certain areas where you should have civilians, so where those police officers that you have doing those duties can either be out assisting or walking a beat?
Yeah, so yeah, we have several civilian positions that we've tried to fill or are trying to fill. We just hired 2 IT, what do you call, IT worker technicians, to help in that. Like we mentioned, the off-duty management system, that will help us replace the outside overtime office. We've taken civilians, offices out of our permits office where we have civilians working at. So we're looking at ways, some of it is contractual, we have to fight with the union over some of these positions they're trying to hold on to, but that's the goal. The goal is to get everyone who, your job description is a police officer, to do police work, not do clerical or employment work or something.
Okay, Jeanette, Scott, and Anita.
The pound. I'm surprised that you only put 15,000 in the budget for that, knowing the economy right now, and knowing that people are being evicted and animals are being displaced and put on the streets. I would have expected a little bit more of an amount in there. And I know they're getting more and more animals, because I'm seeing them on the street, we call. So I would like to see something done with that.
So he's gonna see if we can find the exact amount that we put in for. I don't know if we got necessarily what we put in for.
On page 188,
I
you
had
have,
put that, I just
you have
asked if that one would be there, because they didn't have anything.
33,000.
So they didn't agree to that, that is actually that to your number.
on page 188 on the bottom, on
How much
the
is it?
bottom.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So they didn't put in
There's 33,000.
33?
Yeah. it's-
Veterinary
Okay,
service.
the question, so then, have,
We have 33 now.
Chief, have you spoken to who runs that there, and is that enough for them?
Say that
At
again?
this, have you spoken to the person that's running that facility? Is that enough for them to
Well, she
facilitate
always
that?
says they could use more, especially as it relates to the medical costs. That's what really got us last year, was the vet, I forget that they have a vet who comes and he gives it to them at like a rate that's below what he should be given, but it's still not.
So I visit, I know, I go there. Okay, thank you.
I think, Chief, just for clarity,
Just a minute.
there's veterinary services for 84,000, and then there's 33,000 for animal supplies, and then 2,500 for animals. So there's more than enough.
Yeah,
They got close
It's
to 100,000.
yeah. And then there's supplies, the bottom of 188.
Jeanette just went,
The 189.
Anita, Reverend Lee, and you. Anita,
Huh?
come on. You say you had,
Oh. It's time to go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's time to go.
Chief, I have a question for you. Your police commission, team, are they supportive to helping you with your goals and assisting? Because that is part of the Board of Police Commission's goals, is to assist with goals and, handling traffic issues and stuff to that effect. Because I'm just thinking that could be another helping tool for you in your department, instead of you having to have so much to do. They're supposed to be effective in supporting your goals, setting rules and policies and procedures and stuff.
Yeah, so Commissioner Roach, and I guess they're getting ready to add a couple of new commissioners, and so they're very supportive. He's definitely very supportive in terms of the policies and procedures, getting those pushed along. They do the citizens' complaints. They've really started to move that process along a lot quicker. So, yeah, he and I talk regularly.
And helping you with your goals and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
He's very supportive.
Thank you.
okay, in this order, Reverend Lee and, Scott's gonna take us out.
Take us out
Take
where?
us out where?
Black Rock.
Or drink the bottle.
Y'all in
Maybe.
late. Y'all in late.
I just wanna say that, I think that your department's doing a great job, and I think that, and I thank you for the crime rate is going down in Bridgeport. Bridgeport is not a ghetto city, but it's, we are up on. So I really thank you for the great job that you and the police officers are doing. And thank you for putting my confidence back in police officers. When I left Alabama, I had none. So, thank you very much. And I hope that you got a chance to meet the police officer from Montgomery, Alabama, when you was out in Texas.
I sat next to the people from Montgomery. The mayor from Montgomery sat next to us.
Okay, he in Alabama too, by the way.
All right, Scott, just a housekeeping, they said you could take the chicken home.
Let's
I
go.
know y'all ain't got no food, but hold it, Scott's the last person.
Yeah, he's gone.
All right, Chief, thank you, and to your staff for being here, and council for asking many questions, raising good issues. I'm just gonna go back to the study that we as a council directed to have completed. It took a while. There are some gaps in there, and I think one of the reasons the number came in a little low, just a specific example, the parades and the cost, what's in the book, what's in the study does not match what we read tonight. So that's gonna affect your overall numbers and hours, et cetera. So going forward, I ask you all to look at that, read through it, think about how we can help our city and how help our police. I do agree with Chief that the 4-4 model, 4 days on, 4 days off, is the way to go. I'm not an expert, but I've read and learned. But there's a lot in there. Some things we can apply this year, but I think a lot going forward will be for the next contract. So again, thank you, and,
All right, can I get a motion?
Oh,
To adjourn.
and you also have a cheat sheet that Ashley and our intern
and that-
created
yeah.
as a summary, so you don't have to read the whole thing, council members. You can read the sheet. You all should have it.
Summary.
All right.
The summary. That's
Motion
it.
to adjourn.
You're
thank you
All
very
in
much.
favor, aye.
Nobody really-